I was the woman everyone in the underworld worshipped, until the most dangerous billionaire Don alive decided I was guilty and took me from a gala in front of everyone. But I'm Monica Abberdeen, and I am not the kind of woman who breaks quietly. And Carlos Ravolenti is about to discover that the woman he tried to control may be the only woman powerful enough to bring the beast to his knees. This is our story. Let us begin. By the time a drunk Mafia heir nearly started a blood feud with a champagne glass and too much confidence, I decided the entire underworld needed assigned seating, adult supervision, and possibly a locked dessert table. Unfortunately, I was the adult supervision. The Black Orchid Gala glittered around me like crime had discovered better lighting. Chandeliers dripped gold over black marble floors. Violin music floated above the crowd, delicate enough to make extortion feel tasteful. Men who owned ports, judges, banks, and burial grounds stood beneath towers of white orchids, pretending they were patrons of the arts. Their wives wore diamonds sharp enough to cut reputations. Their sons wore arrogance like cologne. And all of them kept looking for me. Monica, darling. Miss Abberdeen. Thank God. Monica, could you just... No sentence beginning with my name and ending in... Could you just had ever improved my night? I turned before Lucan Morano, Don Armand's youngest disappointment, could finish calling a rival family irrelevant. He stood too close to Matteo Carvello's table, champagne tilting dangerously in his hand, mouth loose, eyes bright with the kind of stupidity money only made louder. Matteo Carvello smiled back at him, not warmly. Men like Matteo did not smile because they were pleased. They smiled because they were choosing where to bury the problem. I slid between them with a laugh soft enough to look accidental and a smile sharp enough to make Lucan blink. Lucan, I said, touching 2 fingers to his sleeve. Careful, sweetheart. Men with private armies are rarely irrelevant. They are usually just quiet before becoming expensive. The people close enough to hear laughed. Quietly. Gratefully. Lucan's insult died in his throat, which was wonderful because I had no desire to watch anyone bleed before dinner. It always ruined the appetite of the innocent and encouraged the dramatic. Matteo lifted his glass toward me. A truce, then. Temporary, like most things men called peace. Lucan leaned closer, smelling like champagne and inherited bad judgment. You always know exactly what to say. Yes, I said. It's my burden. He laughed because men with too much confidence often mistook survival instructions for flirtation. I left him there before he could fall in love with his own rescue. I had almost reached the champagne tower when Elena Davari grabbed my wrist. Her diamonds were cold. Her smile was perfect. Her eyes were not. My husband brought her, she whispered. I followed her gaze across the ballroom to where her husband stood beside a blonde in silver silk who was laughing too loudly at everything he said. There were many ways for a man to humiliate his wife, but they always chose the one with the least imagination. I am going to throw my drink in his face, Elena said. You are not. I am. Elena, you are wearing vintage Lanvin. If anyone gets soaked tonight, let it be someone with less historical value. Her mouth trembled. Then, despite herself, she almost laughed. Good. Rage was fire. Laughter was a door. If you could get a furious woman to laugh, you could sometimes keep the room from burning down. I leaned closer. You will kiss both his cheeks. You will compliment the blonde's earrings. Then you will tell 3 women that your husband has always had a generous heart for charity cases. Elena stared at me. By morning, I continued, you will look dignified, she will look pitiful, and he will look exactly as foolish as he is. A slow, vicious calm settled over her face. Monica Abberdeen, she murmured, you are terrifying. I prefer useful. She squeezed my hand once, then glided away like a woman preparing to commit murder with manners. A waiter appeared beside me with champagne. I took the glass. You saw nothing. His face remained professionally blank. Of course, Miss Abberdeen. You're wasted on honest employment. So I've been told. I had just lifted the glass when I saw the seating cards at the west table. My soul left my body for one elegant second. No, absolutely not. Someone had seated Don Morano within stabbing distance of his former brother-in-law. People thought wars began with bullets. They were wrong. Wars began with seating charts designed by fools. I crossed the room, switched 2 cards, moved a third, and saved dessert from becoming a crime scene. I did it smoothly, without rushing, without looking guilty, without spilling the champagne I still had not managed to drink. Monica, a deep voice said behind me, amused. Rearranging diplomacy again? I turned to Don Vittorio, who was old enough to call murder unfortunate and powerful enough to make people nod. I'm protecting your dessert course. From? Men. Always men. He laughed and kissed the air above my hand. The underworld would collapse without you. That is a terrible thing to say to a woman who wants a vacation. His expression softened. No one adores you more than we do. I smiled because Monica Abberdeen always smiled when powerful men dressed obligation as affection. But adoration was not love. Adoration was work with better lighting. They adored me when I softened their scandals, buried their humiliations, placed them at the right tables, chose the right charities, calmed the right wives, and kept the wrong sons from becoming corpses before midnight. They adored me because I made monsters look civilized. And I was tired. Not that anyone cared. Tired women were only interesting when they collapsed beautifully. Across the ballroom, Seraphine Velez watched me over the rim of her champagne glass, crimson mouth, dark hair, emerald gown. Smile like poison poured into crystal. She had beauty, bloodline, money, and the sort of elegance people called refined because they were too polite to call it cold. She also wanted my place so badly I could almost hear her teeth grind beneath the music. A woman beside her leaned close. Seraphine's expressions softened into concern. There it was. Her favorite weapon. Poor Monica, always near scandal, always the first to know where trouble starts. One does wonder how she knows. I did not hear the words. I knew the shape. Seraphine had been trying to ruin me with concern for years. Unfortunately for her, people trusted me with their messes. They only trusted her with invitations. I smiled at her. She smiled back. Neither of us meant it. Miss Abberdeen. I closed my eyes for half a breath. Lorenzo Varick. When I opened them, he was already in front of me, holding 2 glasses and wearing the expression of a man who believed cheekbones counted as evidence. Lorenzo, I said, how persistent, and here I thought the evening had standards. He handed me a glass I had not asked for. You've been avoiding me. I prefer to think of it as improving the room. He laughed because Lorenzo treated rejection as flirtation if the woman was pretty enough. One day, he said, leaning closer, you'll stop running. I looked up at him sweetly. If I were running, Lorenzo, you would not be this close. His smile faltered, a small gift from the universe. Then the air changed. Not slowly. All at once, the violins kept playing, but softer somehow. Conversations died. Glasses paused halfway to mouths. Men straightened as if someone had pulled wires through their spines. I turned toward the entrance. Carlos Ravolenti stood beneath the archway in a black suit cut with ruthless precision, looking like every dangerous decision in the world had chosen a face. The beast of the underworld. Uninvited, unbothered, devastating in a way that felt personally inconvenient. Lorenzo stepped slightly in front of me. Carlos looked at him. Move. One word. No volume. No anger. Lorenzo moved. I would have enjoyed it more if Carlos had not been walking directly toward me. He stopped close enough for me to see the hard line of his mouth, the cold smoke of his eyes, the absolute stillness of a man who did not need chaos because he brought consequences instead. Monica Abberdeen, he said. Carlos Ravolenti, I answered. How bold. Most men start with hello. His gaze did not warm. Most men are not here because you leaked private information from my house. The ballroom went silent enough to hear my heartbeat make one sharp, furious mistake. For the first time all night, my smile nearly slipped. Nearly. Then offense rose hotter than fear. Excuse me? Carlos looked down at me as if he had already judged the shape of my guilt. And in that instant, the Black Orchid Gala stopped being exhausting. It became dangerous. Carlos Ravolenti had the kind of stillness that made a room question whether it was allowed to breathe. Unfortunately for him, I had been raised around men who used silence as a weapon. I knew how to smile at knives. I leaked private information from your house? I asked, keeping my voice soft enough to make the accusation sound ridiculous. Carlos, if I wanted your attention, I would have sent flowers, or a bill. Both seem less exhausting than espionage. No one laughed. Cowards. Carlos's gaze did not move from mine. You were named in the delivery trail. Then your delivery trail has poor taste. Your name was attached to the leak. My name is attached to half the disasters in this room because I am usually cleaning them up. I lifted my chin. That does not make me responsible for the mess. His eyes narrowed slightly. Barely. Enough. He had expected panic. Tears, maybe. A trembling denial wrapped in perfume and outrage. I gave him irritation. It was what I had available. Behind him, the entire gala had turned into a living painting. Men frozen with glasses in hand, women watching from behind diamonds and careful expressions, guards measuring distances, servants pretending not to listen while hearing everything. Lorenzo stood 2 steps to my left, jaw tight, pride visibly bleeding. Seraphine remained across the room, her champagne untouched, her eyes bright with elegant satisfaction. Oh, she was enjoying this. Nothing thrilled Seraphine Valets more than a woman's reputation being lowered slowly into a grave while everyone called it concern. Carlos stepped closer. The violinists finally stopped playing. That silence was worse. Walk with me, he said. I stared at him. Is that a request? No. How refreshing. Most men at least pretend before disappointing me. A muscle ticked near his jaw. Not anger exactly, more like control tightening around something it did not want loose. He extended his arm, as if this were a promenade, as if he had come to escort me into dinner instead of accuse me of treachery in front of the most dangerous families in the city. I looked at his offered arm, then at his face. You cannot be serious. I am rarely anything else. That sounds tragic. It is efficient. Of course you would think tragedy requires management. Someone inhaled too sharply nearby. Carlos did not glance away. Neither did I. For 1 sharp second, the entire gala narrowed to the space between his black sleeve and my gloved hand. If I refused, what happened? Did he drag me? Did his men move? Did the room finally remember it loved me loudly enough to intervene? My gaze slid past him. 2 Ravolenti men stood near the main doors, another by the corridor to the east salon, one near the terrace entrance, all silent, all positioned with the calm patience of men who had not come to negotiate. My stomach turned cold. I looked toward Don Vittorio. He looked away, not fully, not dramatically, just enough, a tiny betrayal dressed as caution. Elena Davari had one hand pressed to her throat, horror bright in her eyes. Her husband held her elbow, warning her without words. Matteo Carvello watched with careful neutrality. Old Dons, powerful wives, sons with guns under their jackets, men who had kissed my hand, praised my usefulness, told me the underworld would collapse without me. No one moved. Adoration, apparently, had a price limit. I felt something inside me harden. Good. Soft things bruised too easily. Miss Abberdeen, Carlos said, still offering his arm. I looked at him. You do realize this is kidnapping? Yes. No hesitation, no denial. That unsettled me more than a lie would have. At least pretend to be confused, I said. It gives the room something to work with. His mouth did not move. I dislike wasted time. And I dislike being abducted by men with no sense of theater beyond intimidation. This is not theater. I glanced around the silent ballroom. Carlos, there are 300 people watching, and at least 2 women pretending they are not thrilled. It is absolutely theater. You're just bad at enjoying it. His eyes dropped to my mouth for less than a second, less than a breath. Still, I felt it, annoying, dangerous, unwelcome. Take my arm, he said, or, his gaze returned to mine, or I carry you. The room tightened. Lorenzo finally moved. 1 step. Ravolenti, he snapped, voice too loud and too late. You will not touch her. Carlos did not even turn his head. Do not embarrass yourself in front of witnesses. Lorenzo flushed. I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, because panic, when trapped in a corset and surrounded by cowards, sometimes came out wearing the wrong dress. Lorenzo looked at me then, as if waiting for me to ask him to be brave. I did not. A man who needed permission to defend a woman in danger was not a savior. He was decoration with a pulse. Seraphine's voice floated from across the room, soft as silk over broken glass. Carlos, surely this can be handled privately. Concern. Always concern. I turned my head slowly. Her face was arranged into horror, but her eyes were alive. Seraphine, I said, how kind of you to suggest privacy after making certain everyone noticed. A faint pink touched her cheek. Not much, enough to comfort me. Carlos's gaze sharpened, sliding briefly between us. Good. Let him see at least one snake in the garden, but his arm remained extended. His men remained at the doors. And every second I stood there refusing, the room watched me become smaller. I would not give them that. I placed my hand on Carlos Ravolenti's arm. His suit was warm beneath my glove, solid, infuriatingly steady. The moment my fingers settled, a murmur moved through the ballroom like wind through dry leaves. Carlos turned with me. Not dragging, not forcing. That was worse somehow. He escorted me as if I had agreed to leave with him. As if I had chosen the humiliation. As if the woman everyone worshipped could be taken politely enough that no one had to call it violence. We moved through the ballroom, past Don Vittorio, who did not meet my eyes, past Elena, whose mouth trembled around an apology she was too trapped to speak, past Lorenzo, whose fists were clenched, whose pride was wounded, whose body remained exactly where it was, past Seraphine, smiling softly now. I paused just long enough beside her. Try not to look too delighted, I murmured. It wrinkles the performance. Her smile flickered. Carlos heard me. I knew because his arm tensed beneath my hand. Outside the ballroom, the music began again behind us. That almost hurt. Not because I expected loyalty. I was not naive. But because the room had resumed without me so quickly. The underworld adored me. The underworld had let him take me. Carlos led me down the front steps into the cold night. Black cars waited beneath the portico, engines purring, windows tinted dark enough to hide sins. One of his men opened the rear door. I stopped. Carlos stopped with me. The air smelled of rain and expensive exhaust. My heart beat hard now, no longer protected by chandeliers and witnesses. Outside, there was no ballroom to perform for, no laughter to sharpen into weapons, no wives watching, no servants listening, no Seraphine pretending concern, just Carlos Ravolenti, his men, and the open mouth of a black car. I looked at him. This is a terrible idea. Yes. Again, no hesitation. My brows lifted. You agree? I said it was terrible. I did not say it was ineffective. You must be exhausting in negotiations. I usually win them. I'm beginning to suspect people surrender just to end the conversation. For the first time, something almost changed in his face. Not a smile, not softness, a dangerous little acknowledgement. As if he had found me inconvenient in a way he did not entirely dislike. That frightened me more than his accusation. Carlos stepped closer. Not enough to touch, enough to lower his voice. You can get into the car with dignity, Monica, or you can make me prove what everyone in that room already fears. My name in his mouth felt too intimate for a threat. I hated that I noticed. I leaned closer too, because apparently fear had not improved my survival instincts. And what do they fear, Carlos? His eyes held mine. That I do not bluff. The cold slid under my skin. There it was. No shouting, no cruelty, no theatrical rage, just the clean, lethal certainty of a man who did not need permission from anyone. I looked back once at the glowing doors of the gala. No one came out, not one Don, not one wife, not Lorenzo with his wounded pride, not Seraphine with her poisoned concern. The woman everyone worshipped stood on the steps and learned exactly how lonely a pedestal could be. Then I got into the car. Carlos followed. The door shut. The lock clicked. That tiny sound was louder than the entire ballroom had been. Carlos sat beside me, close enough that the darkness between us felt occupied. You are going to tell me what you know, he said. I folded my hands in my lap so he would not see them shake. Then I turned my head and gave him the prettiest smile I had left. Wonderful, I said. My first kidnapping, and somehow I'm already bored.
Chapter 2. Monica Abberdeen sat beside me in the back of my car like a queen being transported to her own execution and planning to complain about the upholstery on the way there. She did not cry. She did not beg. She did not ask where I was taking her. That was the first problem. Most people filled silence when fear sat with them. They bargained, threatened, prayed, lied badly. Monica folded her gloved hands in her lap, crossed one ankle over the other beneath the torn edge of her gown, and watched the city slide past the tinted window with the furious calm of a woman memorizing the route. I let her. For now. The Black Orchid Gala disappeared behind us, all gold light and cowardice. I had watched the room, let me take her. I had expected that. The underworld adored Monica Abberdeen. But adoration was not courage. Powerful men loved useful women until protecting them became expensive. She knew it too. That mattered more than it should have. Her reflection in the glass did not move, but her eyes did. Street, turn, bridge, guard car behind us, second vehicle ahead. She caught everything. "You are wasting your time," I said. She did not look at me. That is rich coming from a man who interrupted an entire gala to kidnap one woman. "You are counting turns. I'm admiring the city. In silence? I did not want to disturb your brooding. It seems important to you." My driver's hands tightened once on the wheel. I looked at the back of his head. His hands relaxed. Monica noticed that too. "I should warn you," she said, still watching the window. "If your plan involves locking me in a basement, I will be very disappointed. You have preferences? I have standards. There is a difference. You are not in a position to make demands. No, apparently I am in a position to be abducted by a man who speaks exclusively in warnings." She finally turned her head. "Does that get tiring, or do you outsource fatigue to your staff?" I studied her. The city lights cut across her face in pale flashes. She had been worshipped under chandeliers less than an hour ago. Now she sat in my car, accused, taken, surrounded by men with guns, and still, she used her mouth like a blade because fear had not found a better place to live. Interesting. Inconvenient. "Do you ever stop talking?" I asked. "When men stop giving me reasons?" The car turned through the iron gates of my estate. Monica's gaze snapped forward. There. The second problem. She could pretend to mock the situation, but she understood danger. Her eyes moved over the perimeter wall, the guard posts, the cameras set into the stone, the second gate past the first. She counted men. She measured distance. She noted where the trees thinned near the east side. I watched her watch my house. Most people saw wealth. Monica saw a cage and began studying the bars. The car stopped beneath the front portico. 2 guards opened the doors. Cold night air rolled in, carrying rain and cut grass from the gardens. Monica stepped out before anyone could offer a hand. Pride first. Always. She looked up at the house. Ravolenti House had been built by a man who believed softness invited betrayal. Black stone, high windows, iron balconies, and enough reinforced glass to withstand men with worse intentions than taste. Monica tilted her head. "Well," she said, "it certainly has feelings." I came around the car. Feelings. Mostly unresolved ones. One of my guards coughed. I did not turn. Monica did. "Are you dying?" she asked him politely. "Or was that joy trying to escape?" The guard went rigid. Good. At least someone in my house still had survival instincts. I led her inside. The foyer opened wide and cold around us, marble underfoot, dark columns rising toward a ceiling painted with old Ravolenti victories. Monica glanced at the staircase, the corridor to the east wing, the security mirror above the archway, and the 2 men posted near the library. Then she sighed. Not dramatically, worse, critically. "This is what happens when money is allowed to grieve in public." I stopped. She nearly walked into my back, but caught herself. "Explain." She looked up at me with insulting innocence. "The house. It looks like a cathedral married a bank vault, and neither of them believed in curtains. My house is not here to comfort you." "Yes, Carlos, that was clear from the kidnapping." Hearing my name in her mouth inside my house did something unpleasant to the air. It made it smaller. I turned and continued walking. "You will remain here until I know what you gave my enemies." "I gave your enemies nothing." "That remains to be seen." And there it is, the optimism of a man with dungeon architecture. "There is no dungeon." "Shame. I had notes prepared." We entered the lower west salon, the room I used when I wanted people unsettled but not bleeding. Matteo stood near the fireplace, tablet in hand, face controlled. He had already received the report from the gala cleanup. His eyes moved once to Monica. She noticed him, then the exits, then the distance from the fireplace tools. Not careless. Never careless. "Miss Abberdeen," Matteo said. "Condolences," she replied. His brows moved. "For? Working here. It must be emotionally cold." Matteo looked at me. I ignored him. "Sit," I told her. Monica looked at the chair opposite my desk, as if it had made an offer beneath her standards. "No, thank you." It was not a suggestion. And yet I have declined beautifully. Matteo's mouth tightened. I stepped closer. You are in my house because private Ravolenti information was leaked through a delivery chain that carries your name. My name appears on invitations, charity boards, seating lists, donor letters, apologies, condolences, and occasionally threats written by men with poor spelling. She lifted one shoulder. You will need to be more specific. I will be. How comforting. I took the tablet from Matteo and opened the first page of the report. A courier delivered a sealed file to Don, Bellari's table before the gala began. The courier was cleared through an Aberdeen event credential. Her expression did not change quickly. That was the third problem. Monica Abberdeen had a face trained for war in silk. Anyone can forge an event credential, she said. Not yours. She smiled without warmth. Carlos, half the underworld has been trying to get into rooms with my name on the door for years. Forgery is practically courtship. The file contained Ravolenti port schedules, payment transfers, and names of 2 protected witnesses. For the first time, something in her eyes sharpened beyond insult. Not guilt. Anger. Protected witnesses? Yes. Her chin lifted. Then whoever did this is either stupid or cruel, or useful to you. If I wanted leverage over you, I would not endanger witnesses to get it. You expect me to believe you have morals. I expect you to believe I have taste. Her voice cooled. Hurting frightened people to embarrass a powerful man is ugly. Matteo shifted slightly. I did not, because that answer had come too fast to be prepared and too sharp to be decorative. You know many frightened people? I asked. Her face closed. They're a door. I marked it. I know many powerful people, she said lightly. The frightened ones are usually standing behind them. I moved around the desk and set the tablet down. She still had not sat. Fine. Let her stand. Let her spend her strength proving she was not afraid. The longer she fought the room, the more I learned. You left the gala with me because you understood the exits were blocked, I said. I left because being carried would have wrinkled the dress. You were afraid. Of course I was. Her honesty cut clean through the room. I am sarcastic, Carlos, not dead. For one moment, the fire cracked too loudly. Then her smile returned, quick and polished. But please do not look so pleased. Fear is not a compliment. I should have pressed harder. Instead, I found myself respecting the fact that she had admitted fear without surrendering an inch. That was the fourth problem. I did not like any of them. Your rules, I said. She arched a brow. Ah, the hospitality portion. You do not leave the property. You do not use a phone. You do not send messages. You do not enter restricted areas. You do not speak to staff unless spoken to. You will have guards outside your door. Wonderful. A prison with bullet points. You will answer my questions. You will ask better ones. Matteo looked down at his tablet with the expression of a man reconsidering every choice that had led him to this room. I stepped closer until Monica had to tilt her head to hold my gaze. She did. You are not a guest, I said. No, she said softly. Guests get wine. Hostages get rules. Then behave like one. Her smile turned dangerous. Carlos, if you wanted a quiet hostage, you should have kidnapped someone with less personality. The silence after that was precise, sharp, alive. And for the first time since I had taken her, I understood that bringing Monica Abberdeen into my house had not put her under my control. It had brought war through my front door wearing satin heels. War, I had learned, did not always arrive with guns. Sometimes it arrived in satin heels, looked around your ancestral home, and insulted the emotional condition of your furniture. Monica Abberdeen stood in my west salon, like every rule I had built around my life had bored her personally. Her chin stayed lifted, her hands stayed calm, her eyes did not. Those eyes kept working. They moved from Matteo to the fireplace tools, from the side table to the corridor, from the armed guard near the door to the reflective glass behind him. She was not helpless. She was cataloging. That made her more dangerous than a crying woman and less predictable than a guilty one. I took the tablet from Matteo and opened the rest of the file. You wanted better questions, I said. Answer this one. I turned the screen toward her. She glanced at it with clear irritation, as if evidence were another inconvenience I had created for her evening. Then she read. The sarcasm did not leave her face all at once. It thinned slowly, like silk pulled tight over a blade. The first page had shown the courier credential. The second showed the route. The third showed the timing. Monica's mouth hardened. "Well," she said, "that is unattractive." "You deny it?" "I deny having standards this low." "Monica." Her eyes lifted to mine. "The delivery chain is too clean. My name appears exactly where an angry man would need to see it. The file reached Bellari's table before your arrival, which means whoever sent it knew you would come, knew I would be there, and knew you would make the largest possible mess in response." Matteo's gaze flicked to me. I did not move. Monica did not look away. "You are saying I was baited." "I am saying someone threw a match into a room full of oil and counted on you to enjoy fire." The insult was clean, accurate enough to be irritating. "You assume too much." "No, Carlos, I observe too much. It is one of my least appreciated qualities." I looked at the file again, then at her. "You expect me to believe your name was used without your knowledge. I expect you to believe that if I wanted to ruin you, I would not do it like a bored assistant with access to a printer." Matteo made the mistake of breathing too close to a laugh. I cut him a look. He became stone. Monica noticed, because of course she did. "You run a cheerful house," she said. "You have not seen me cheerful." "I doubt the world has survived it." Before I could answer, Matteo's phone vibrated. He checked it, and his expression changed by a fraction. I hated fractions. They usually meant consequences. "What?" I asked. He hesitated. Monica's attention sharpened instantly. "Now," I said. Matteo handed me the phone. The first alert was from a private Underworld news chain. Lorenzo Varick vows to return Monica Abberdeen safely after Ravolenti abduction. Under it was a photograph of Varick outside the Black Orchid, jaw set, one hand over his heart, like grief had paid him for the performance. Monica leaned just far enough to see. Her reaction was immediate, not tender, not hopeful, horrified. Oh, absolutely not." I looked at her. "You know him." "Unfortunately, yes. He has made persistence his entire personality. He says he intends to save you. Lorenzo once sent me 12 pages of poetry about my wrists." She pointed at the screen. "A man like that should not be allowed near rescue work." I stared at her. "Your wrists?" "Yes, that is the correct level of alarm." Matteo looked down at the floor. Coward. The second alert appeared before I could hand the phone back. A statement from Serafine Velez, a photograph of her in emerald silk, eyes lowered, mouth soft, beautiful enough to make lies look expensive. "We are all praying Monica is safe. She has always been drawn to dangerous rooms, but no woman deserves to be frightened." Monica's face changed. Barely, but it changed. The humor went cold first, then the eyes. "Serafine," I said, "Viper with better lighting. She implies you wanted this. She implies many things. It saves her the burden of courage." "You are not surprised." "No, Serafine has never seen a woman's humiliation without wondering if it came in her size." I studied her. She was angry, not shocked. That mattered. Serafine was not new to her. Varick was not new to her. Being used in a room full of people who smiled while cutting her was not new to her either. That should not have interested me. It did. I handed the phone back to Matteo. "Trace where the first rumor started." "Yes, sir." Monica gave me a bright false smile. "How noble. The kidnapper investigates gossip. The gossip affects my investigation." "Of course, I forgot. My public humiliation is only relevant once it becomes administratively inconvenient. She should not have been able to make me feel accused while standing inside my house under my guard. Yet there it was, a small, unwelcome pressure beneath my ribs. I ignored it. "You need a room," I said. I had one. It was in my apartment. It came with freedom and better curtains. "This way." She followed because two men stood behind her, and because she understood when refusal would waste strength. That, more than anything, told me she was not foolish. The bedroom I gave her faced the inner courtyard. No balcony, reinforced windows, one door, 2 cameras in the corridor, guards on rotation. She walked inside, looked around and sighed. "Carlos." "What?" "This room looks like it apologizes to no one. It is secure. It is beige with money. You will stay here." I suspected that when I saw the guards and the complete absence of joy. I stepped closer to the threshold, not entering fully. "You will not attempt to leave." She turned slowly. "Do you enjoy saying impossible things with confidence? You will not enter restricted areas." Then label them clearly. Men like you love mystery and then punish women for solving it. You will not speak to my staff unless necessary. That seems cruel to your staff. To you. To your staff, she repeated. They look starved for conversation. The guard outside her door coughed. I did not turn. He stopped existing. Monica's mouth curved. Infuriating woman. I left her there with the door unlocked and guards outside. The lock was not the point. The house was. The men were. The distance from the gate was. 19 minutes later, she proved she understood all of it. I watched her on the security feed from the west corridor. She did not rush. She waited until the guard rotation shifted, stepped out with the calm of a woman looking for a powder room, and moved toward the restricted hall with a silver letter opener tucked along her forearm. Mateo stood beside me. She found that quickly. She was looking before she entered the room. She's either guilty or very difficult. Both are possible. But I was already walking. I reached the corridor before she made the turn. Monica stopped when she saw me. For one breath, the house seemed to hold itself still. Then she looked at the dark hallway behind me and smiled. Lovely. You do have a forbidden wing. I was worried the evening had peaked. Give me the letter opener. Her fingers tightened. I saw it. She saw me see it. I held out my hand, not grabbing, not reaching for her wrist, not giving her the satisfaction of proving her right. Now. She looked at my palm. You know, for a man committing several crimes before midnight, you are very particular about manners. Monica. Her name came out colder than planned. Something in her expression shifted. Not fear. Recognition. She placed the letter opener in my hand, handle first. Her glove brushed my palm for half a second. A meaningless touch. It did not feel meaningless. You are safer here, I said. Her laugh was small and sharp. Men who lock women up always say that with tragic confidence. You think I am the danger. I think men with keys always overestimate the difference between protection and ownership. That struck too close to something I had no intention of naming. A guard approached from the stairwell, phone in hand. Sir. I kept my eyes on Monica. Speak. The rumor has spread across 3 family channels. They are saying Miss Abberdeen arranged tonight herself, that she wanted the scandal. Monica went still. Not stiff. Still. Like a woman who had spent years surviving rooms by controlling the story and had just felt the story turn its teeth toward her. For the first time since I had taken her, I saw where the blade could cut. Then she lifted her chin. If I planned this, she said, voice sweet enough to poison tea, I would have packed better shoes, better lipstick, and a man with a less depressing breakfast menu. I should have told her to stop talking. Instead, I looked at the guard. Find the source. Yes, sir. Monica's gaze flicked to mine. I stepped closer and lowered my voice. Until I know who started this, you do not leave my sight. Her smile hardened. Careful, Carlos. That almost sounded like protection. It is control. The answer came fast. Too fast. Her eyes cooled. Good. Anger was safer than whatever had nearly moved between us. But as I turned her back toward the bedroom, the evidence rearranged itself in my mind. The leak. The credential. Varric performing devotion. Seraphine dressing poison as concern. The rumor moving too quickly. I had taken Monica Abberdeen because her name appeared in my enemy's hand. Now the Underworld was tearing at her reputation before the blood on the accusation had even dried. And for the first time that night, I wondered if I had kidnapped the woman who betrayed me, or stolen the target before someone else could finish ruining her.
Chapter 3. By morning, I had compiled a list of things Carlos Ravolenti owed me. Coffee, shoes, my phone, an apology large enough to require its own table, possibly a new life, but I was trying to remain reasonable before breakfast. I stood in the bedroom he had assigned me, staring at the 2 guards outside my open door while they tried very hard not to look at me. Ravolenti men were impressive in the same way statues were impressive, large, silent, and emotionally unavailable to an alarming degree. You, I said to the taller one. His eyes shifted to me. Progress. What is your name? He hesitated like I had asked him to betray a country. Dario. Dario. Lovely. Very tragic. It suits the hallway. I turned to the other. And you? The second guard looked physically pained. Enzo. Wonderful. Dario and Enzo, You both look like men who have been forbidden from smiling since childhood. Neither of them smiled. Point proven. I need coffee, I said. Strong enough to resurrect my patience. I also need shoes, my phone, and your employer's apology delivered in complete sentences. Dario stared straight ahead. Enzo cleared his throat. Mr. Ravolenti said you would ask for those. Excellent. Then he has had time to prepare. A voice came from the end of the hall. I prepared coffee. Carlos walked toward me in a black suit, because apparently even breakfast needed to be intimidated into obedience. His hair was neat, his jaw was shadowed, his expression belonged on a bank vault. Behind him, a maid carried a silver tray with a single cup of coffee. No shoes, no phone, no apology table. I looked at the cup, then at him. That is not an apology. It is warm. So is arson. Try again. The maid's lips twitched. Carlos noticed. The hallway temperature dropped by several degrees. I took the coffee anyway because principles were important, but caffeine was holy. Carlos watched me take a sip. You are coming to my office, am I? Yes. And if I decline beautifully again, you will come less beautifully. I lowered the cup. That was almost a joke. It was not. Pity, you need the practice. His gaze moved over my face like he was reading damage, defiance, calculation. I hated how closely he looked. Most men looked at women and saw decoration, desire, usefulness, or threat. Carlos looked like he was trying to find the mechanism beneath my skin. It made me want to throw the coffee. It was good coffee, unfortunately. I followed him because the hallway was full of armed men, and because I had already tested enough corners of the estate to know Ravolenti House had been designed by someone with money, paranoia, and a lifelong grudge against escape routes. The office looked no friendlier in daylight. Dark shelves, heavy desk, no unnecessary softness. A room built for decisions that ruined other people's mornings. Matteo stood near the windows with a tablet in hand. He looked at me with the careful neutrality of a man who had not yet decided whether I was a hostage, a suspect, or a weather event. Good morning, Matteo, I said. His brows lifted slightly. Miss Abberdeen. You look tired. Is it Carlos, or does the house drain joy from everyone equally? Carlos moved behind his desk. Sit. I sat this time because my feet hurt, and refusing out of principle was less satisfying when done barefoot. Also, I wanted him to notice I chose it. His eyes flicked down to the chair, then back to me. He noticed. Annoying man, he placed several printed pages before me. More evidence. How generous. Nothing says hospitality like additional accusations. Read. I picked up the first page, prepared to be offended. Instead, I became interested. That was worse. The leak trail was cleaner than the first set he had shown me. Too clean. Every mark led neatly through one Aberdeen credential, one courier chain, one point of transfer. My name did not appear in a way that could be accidental. It had been placed like a centerpiece. I turned the page. Ravolenti Port. Schedules. Payment routes. Witness names redacted in some places, exposed in others. My stomach tightened. Not for Carlos. For the people behind the black bars of ink, protected witnesses. Frightened people. People who had trusted a powerful man's system to keep them hidden and had been turned into bait for a public game. Anger went very still inside me. This is not a leak, I said. Carlos leaned back. No? No, a leak is quiet, useful, meant to move information without drawing attention until the damage is done. I tapped the page with one fingernail. This is a staged humiliation. Loud enough to pull you to the gala, ugly enough to make you act, and neat enough to make me look responsible. Matteo's expression sharpened. Carlos said nothing. I looked up. Whoever did this did not just want your information exposed. They wanted you angry in a room where everyone could watch what you did with that anger. Carlos's eyes narrowed. Good. Let him choke on logic. And they wanted me attached to it, I continued. Not because I am useful to the leak, because I am useful to the scandal. You sound certain. I sound observant. I slid the papers back toward him. There is a difference. People rarely appreciate it until after they have made a public mistake. His jaw shifted slightly. That was becoming my favorite almost reaction. You are saying I made one, he said. I am saying you walked into a gala, accused me in front of every powerful gossip with a pulse, and kidnapped me politely enough that half the city can now pretend I participated. Matteo looked down at his tablet. Wise man. Carlos's face remained controlled, but something behind his eyes tightened. Not regret. Not yet. Carlos Ravolenti did not seem like the type to arrive at regret quickly. He probably scheduled it 3 weeks in advance and made someone else confirm parking. I acted on evidence, he said. You acted on insult. I lifted my coffee. The evidence simply wore a name tag. Silence. Sharp, heavy, and alive. Then Carlos did something inconvenient. He listened. Not softened. Not surrendered. Listened. Who benefits? He asked. That question changed the room. Not because it was kind, because it was the first question that did not treat me like the answer. I crossed one leg over the other, ignoring the fact that I still had no shoes and only half my dignity. Someone who wanted you reactive, me discredited, and the room entertained enough not to ask better questions. Seraphine Valles. I smiled. She would enjoy the smoke. That does not mean she lit the match. Lorenzo Varick. Lorenzo would light himself on fire if he thought women would call it devotion. Matteo made a sound that died quickly. Carlos's gaze cut to him. I pointed with my coffee cup. Do not punish him. That was almost healthy. Carlos looked back at me. Do you take anything seriously? Yes. The answer left my mouth too quickly. His attention sharpened. I covered with a smile. Breakfast, shoes, revenge done correctly. Carlos studied me for a moment longer than necessary. I hated that he saw the cover. Before he could press, the office door opened. A young maid entered with a fresh pot of coffee and a small plate of toast. Her hands trembled just slightly when she saw Carlos. I noticed. Carlos noticed me noticing. The maid set the tray down too quickly. Careful, I said gently. She froze. I picked up the toast plate myself. Thank you. Also, if anyone asks, this room would benefit from curtains and perhaps a single object that suggests a human has laughed here before. The maid's mouth twitched. Carlos's voice came dry and low. Do not redecorate my office. I am not redecorating. I am diagnosing. Matteo looked away again. Carlos's eyes held mine with something colder than amusement and warmer than anger. A terrible category. The door opened a second time. This time, one of his guards entered with an envelope in his gloved hand. The air changed before he spoke. Carlos stood. The guard said this was left at the inner gate. My body went very still. Carlos took the envelope. There was no address, only my name written across the front in black ink. Monica Abberdeen. The handwriting was sharp, slanted, and furious. For once, I had no joke ready fast enough. Carlos looked at me, then broke the seal. Inside was one line. His eyes moved across it. Whatever he read made the last trace of warmth leave his face. I stood before I decided to. What does it say? Carlos did not answer immediately, so I stepped closer and read it myself. Give us the Marlowe file, or the darling of the underworld stops being darling. My coffee went cold in my hand, and somewhere beyond the beautiful locked walls of Carlos Ravolenti's house, someone had just reminded me that reputation was not the only thing that could bleed. For one ugly second, the room disappeared. Not Carlos, not Matteo, not the guard standing by the door with his hand near his gun, not the expensive desk beneath my palm or the coffee cooling in my fingers, only the note existed. Give us the Marlowe file, or the darling of the underworld stops being darling. I hated that word suddenly. Darling. Men used it when they wanted a woman softened, polished, quiet. Women used it when they wanted to smile while sliding a knife between ribs. The underworld used it on me because it sounded prettier than useful. Carlos took the note from my hand before I realized I had tightened my fingers around it. What is the Marlowe file? His voice had changed. Still calm, still controlled, but the room around him seemed to brace. I lifted my coffee to my lips, remembered it was cold, and set it down. A mess. That is not an answer. It is the most honest one. Monica. There was that tone again. Command wrapped in impatience, sharpened by the fact that he was used to people obeying both. I looked at him. Do you ever say a woman's name without making it sound like a warrant? No. At least you are self-aware in one area. Matteo glanced down at his tablet like it had become deeply interesting. Carlos did not move. Fine, I exhaled slowly. The Marlowe file was a scandal I handled 4 months ago. A private party, too much liquor, too many rich men who had never been told no by anyone large enough to frighten them. Carlos's eyes narrowed. Names. The Rinaldi twins. Matteo's head lifted. There it was. Recognition. Carlos's expression went colder. Nico and Dante Rinaldi. Unfortunately, yes, two men sharing one conscience and neither using it. They are reckless. They are spoiled, I corrected. Reckless suggests movement. The Rinaldis mostly rot in expensive rooms and wait for other people to clean the smell. Carlos's mouth did not change, but his eyes sharpened again. That was becoming its own language. What happened? A young woman named Clara Marlowe worked the party. Not a mistress. Not a criminal. Not some social climber trying to wedge herself into a family. She was hired staff. I hated how my voice tightened and forced it smooth. Something valuable disappeared. A Rinaldi family signet, old, expensive, sentimental only because rich men enjoy pretending objects have honor. And Clara was blamed. Publicly, almost. I looked away toward the dark window. The morning outside was gray and damp, pressing against the glass like the world had become tired too. They were going to ruin her, accuse her in front of guests, search her bag, make sure no one ever hired her again. The sort of little violence men call discipline when they do not want to admit they enjoy humiliation. Carlos said nothing. Good. If he had tried to soften it, I might have thrown something. I stopped it, I said. Found the ring in the pocket of one of the twins' friends. Drunk idiot. He took it as a joke. The Rinaldis knew before I did, I think, but blaming Clara was cleaner, easier. She had no father with soldiers, no mother with diamonds, no last name that made men hesitate. Carlos leaned one hand on the desk, and you kept proof. Of course I kept proof. Why? I smiled at him then, but there was no humor in it. Because men like the Rinaldis always behave better when truth is sitting in a drawer somewhere waiting to become inconvenient. Matteo made a low sound. Where is the file now? With my assistant, Gia. Carlos's gaze flicked toward him. Fine, Gia. My heart tightened before I could stop it. I did not like the speed of the order. I liked less that I was grateful for it. She will not have it on her, I said. She is smarter than that. Carlos looked back at me. Where would she keep it? If I knew that exactly, she would be bad at her job. His stare hardened. I lifted a hand. Goff, do not glare at me because my assistant has healthy security habits. She learned from me. You gave a staff member access to sensitive files involving Mafia families. I gave a trusted woman access to evidence powerful men would rather destroy. I stepped closer before I remembered distance was wise. There is a difference. The guard by the door shifted. Carlos heard it. So did I. He turned his head slightly. No one enters this room without clearance. The guard swallowed. Sir, the note was left at the inner gate. We are checking cameras. Check them faster. Yes, sir. The door closed. A strange silence followed. I felt it then beneath the anger, the fear. Not the pretty kind, not trembling in tears, the practical stomach-deep kind that made every possible danger arrange itself in my head. Gia, my apartment, my files, the rumor spreading through the city, Seraphine smiling over champagne, Lorenzo performing rescue for witnesses, the Rinaldi sending a note inside Carlos Ravolenti's gates. I wrapped my arms loosely around myself, then hated the gesture and dropped them. Carlos saw. You should sit, he said. I would rather not take medical advice from my kidnapper. It was not medical. Worse, hospitality. His jaw shifted. Someone threatened you. Yes, I read the note. The penmanship was aggressive. This is not a joke. No, Carlos, it is a threat written by men who probably think spelling is optional. I am allowed to dislike the presentation. Do you ever stop using humor as a shield? The question landed too close. I looked at him, smile bright and false. Do you ever stop using silence as a weapon? His eyes stayed on mine. For 1 second, neither of us won. Then Matteo's phone buzzed. He answered, listened, and his face changed. Carlos turned. What? Matteo's gaze moved to me before returning to Carlos. The camera at the inner gate cut out for 14 seconds, long enough for the envelope to be placed. Whoever delivered it had access past the first perimeter. The air left my lungs slowly. Carlos went still. Not surprised. Worse. Lethal. Inside the outer burst security line, he said. Matteo nodded. Yes. I looked toward the door, then the windows, then back at Carlos. The house suddenly felt less like a prison and more like a very expensive promise someone else had already broken. Carlos picked up his phone. Seal the West Hall. Double internal rotation. I want every guard reviewed. No one approaches Miss Abberdeen without my approval. My temper snapped back because fear and I had never been compatible for long. Oh, lovely. More guards. That will certainly make being trapped feel fresher. Carlos ended the call. You will be moved. To where? A decorative cage with better curtains? To the protected wing. Mateo looked up sharply. I noticed. Carlos ignored him. And where is that? I asked. Near my suite. The words sat between us like a lit match. Near his suite. Of course, the solution to a threat was to put me closer to the man who had dragged me out of a gala in front of every family that had ever claimed to adore me. No, I said. Carlos's eyes narrowed. No? I know it is a difficult word for men in your profession, but yes. No. You are not safe in this wing. I am not free in any wing. His expression did not change, but the silence around him sharpened. I stepped closer because apparently I had learned nothing from the last 24 hours. Do not stand there and pretend this is only protection. It is protection. It is control wearing a cleaner suit. His voice dropped. Someone got through my perimeter to threaten you. And you think putting me closer to you solves that? Yes. The certainty of it should have infuriated me. It did. But beneath it, something else moved. Something smaller and more dangerous. Because Carlos Ravolenti was not performing concern for a room, there was no audience here, no chandeliers, no Seraphine pretending pity, no Lorenzo posing as a hero. Only Carlos, furious in a way that felt focused enough to become a weapon. And for the first time I wondered who that weapon was pointing at. Mateo cleared his throat carefully. I will prepare the protected wing. Carlos did not look away from me. Do it. When Mateo left, I folded my arms. So I've been promoted from hostage to inconvenient royal? You have been moved where I can protect you. Carlos, that is still a sentence with too much ownership in it. His eyes dropped once to my mouth. A flicker. So fast I almost missed it. Almost. Then he looked back into my eyes, controlled again. Pack what you need. I laughed softly and looked down at my torn gown, my bare feet, my empty hands. Carlos, I was kidnapped. My luggage is mostly resentment. For the first time his mouth nearly moved. Not a smile. Something worse. Something like he had found me impossible and had not yet decided whether that was a flaw. Then he stepped aside, opening the door himself. The hallway beyond was full of guards. Waiting, watching, a cage shifting shape. I walked past him with my chin high because fear could follow if it wanted, but it did not get to lead. As we moved toward the protected wing, Carlos stayed beside me instead of behind me. That should not have mattered. It did. And when the heavy doors opened at the end of the hall, I understood the truth with a cold little twist in my chest. Carlos Ravolenti had taken me because he thought I was the problem. Now someone outside these walls had made me his problem. And the beast of the underworld looked far too ready to enjoy solving it.
Chapter 4. Monica Abberdeen had been in my protected wing for less than 12 hours when she began reorganizing my life from the hallway. I was in a security briefing with 3 armed men, my consigliere, and a map of every weakness in my estate when her voice floated through the half-open door like silk tied around a knife. If you are putting Don Savelli near open flames, sharp objects, or women with self-esteem, I should warn you now, that is not security. That is optimism. Every man in my office went still. Mateo closed his eyes. I looked at the door. Monica stood just outside it, in the pale blue robe my housekeeper had provided, one shoulder against the frame, her dark hair loose around her face, bare feet tucked beneath the hem, as if she had not wandered into the operational center of a Mafia house and insulted one of my oldest allies before breakfast. She held a cup of coffee in both hands. My coffee, from my private tray. Why? I asked. Are you outside my office? She looked down at the floor, then back at me. Because inside your office felt presumptuous. Mateo made a faint sound. I ignored him. You were told to remain in your suite. I was told many things. Most of them were delivered by men with no visible hobbies. This is a private meeting. The hallway disagreed. One of my captains shifted his weight. Monica's gaze moved to him immediately. You, the nervous one with the jaw. He stiffened. I am not nervous. Sweetheart, your left hand has checked your jacket twice in 1 minute. Either you are nervous, armed poorly, or hiding a sandwich. All 3 concern me. Mateo lowered his head. I should have ordered her back to her room. I did not. That was the first mistake. The second was wondering how she had noticed the captain's hand before any of my men did. I leaned back in my chair. Since you are eavesdropping, finish your interruption. Monica lifted her brows. How generous. The kidnapper allows civic participation. Monica. Yes, yes. Less commentary, more usefulness. She stepped into the office without permission and crossed to the guest list spread beside the security map. Her eyes skimmed names faster than most trained analysts reviewed threat sheets. Then she tapped one manicured nail beside Savelli's name. Do not invite him to the north dining room. Why? Because Seraphine's cousin will be there, and Savelli owes him money. Also, his second wife once called Seraphine's mother a decorative illness. Lovely woman. Terrible timing. Matteo looked up. That was 12 years ago. Monica glanced at him. Men remember debts. Women remember wording. I watched her. She moved another name down the list. Bellari cannot sit near Lorenzo Varick. My jaw tightened at Varick's name. Monica noticed. Do not do that, she said. Do what? Look like you're considering removing a man from the planet because his name inconvenienced the heir. Matteo stared very hard at the table. I said nothing. Monica continued as if she had not just accused me of murder over seating. Bellari thinks Lorenzo is ridiculous, which is accurate but unhelpful. Lorenzo is too vain to ignore mockery and too stupid to survive answering it well. If they sit together, someone will say something performative, and then everyone will have to pretend they did not enjoy it. One of my men frowned. You know all this from parties? Monica smiled at him. It was not kind. People reveal more over champagne than they do under torture. Torture makes them dramatic. Champagne makes them honest. The room went quiet, because she was right, because none of my men liked that she was right, and because I liked it least of all. I rose and took the list from under her hand. Her fingers were warm for the half-second mine brushed past them. She noticed the contact, so did I. Neither of us acknowledged it. You are not here to manage my guest arrangements. I said no. I am here because you kidnapped me and placed me in a luxury hallway with trust issues. She took another sip of coffee. I am making the best of poor circumstances. You are interfering with my operation. I am improving it. You are under threat, and yet somehow I remain opinionated. Medical miracle. You will return to your suite. I will return to my suite when I'm finished telling you that your East Corridor guard rotation has a gap. That stopped the room. Matteo's head lifted fully. I stared at her. What gap? Monica tilted her head toward the hall. 7 minutes after the hour, the tall guard with the tragic cheekbones goes toward the stairwell before his replacement reaches the end post. It happened twice this morning. My gaze cut to Matteo. He was already checking the rotation notes. One of my captains muttered a curse. Monica looked at him. Exactly. Though I would have used a more elegant word. I moved closer to her. You were watching my guards. I am locked inside a house with them. Was I meant to develop an interest in embroidery? You are not supposed to study my security. You should have kidnapped someone less observant. The room held its breath. She did not step back. That was becoming a problem I could not solve by force. Force would move her body. It would not quiet her mind. Matteo looked from his tablet to me. She is correct. There is a brief overlap issue. Monica smiled brightly. Wonderful. I accept apologies in shoes. I gave Matteo one look. He turned to the captains. Adjust the rotation. They left quickly, perhaps grateful to escape before Monica diagnosed their childhoods. When the door closed, only Matteo remained with us. Monica's smile dimmed the instant no one was looking directly at it. Not gone. Never gone. But lowered, as if it weighed more than she wanted anyone to know. She turned toward the window, one hand pressing briefly against her temple. There, the performance slipped. Not dramatically. Monica was too disciplined for that. It was one breath, one moment of a woman who had been taken from a gala, accused in public, threatened through a note, locked in a stranger's estate, and still forced herself to be clever because clever was safer than scared. I hated that I saw it. I hated more that I did not look away. You did not sleep, I said. Her hand dropped instantly. I slept beautifully. Your hallway has the calming energy of an armed mausoleum. You are exhausted, and you are observant. We all suffer. Why keep performing? The question left my mouth before I decided to ask it. Matteo glanced at me, then wisely found a reason to leave. I will handle the rotation changes. He shut the door behind him. Monica and I stood alone in my office, the morning light cutting pale lines across the floor between us. She looked at the closed door before facing me again. "Performing?" she asked lightly. "Yes." "Carlos, women like me are not allowed to be tired in public. We are allowed to be graceful, useful, charming, forgiving, decorative, and occasionally ill if we do it quietly. Tired is inconvenient." Her voice stayed bright. Her eyes did not. I said nothing because there was nothing safe to say. She smiled anyway. "Do not look so grim. I am sure you have your own burdens. Maintaining this much emotional frost must require discipline." "People use you," I said. For once, she did not answer immediately. Then she looked past me, toward the shelves, the walls, the house that had become her cage. "People adore me," she said. "It sounds nicer. It is not the same thing." No, her smile sharpened, but it did not reach her eyes. "It is just better dressed." Something in my chest tightened. Unwelcome, unnecessary, dangerous. Before I could respond, a knock struck the door hard enough to break the air. Mateo entered without waiting. His face told me before his words did. "What?" I asked. He looked at Monica, then at me. "Serafine Valles gave a statement at the Bellari luncheon. It is spreading fast." Monica went very still. Mateo's mouth tightened. "She is," implying Miss Abberdeen has always been reckless with powerful men. The coffee cup in Monica's hand did not move. Neither did her face. Only her eyes changed. And for the first time since she entered my house, Monica Abberdeen looked less like she wanted to escape me, and more like she wanted to go to war. Monica did not move. That concerned me more than if she had thrown the coffee cup. Her mouth stayed curved, faintly, beautifully, falsely. Her fingers remained wrapped around porcelain, but something in her eyes sharpened until the room felt smaller around it. Serafine Valles had drawn blood without entering the house. I hated that. "She said what exactly?" Monica asked. Mateo checked the message. "That powerful men have always found Miss Abberdeen compelling. That she hopes no one mistakes charm for innocence. That this situation with Ravolenti House is troubling, but not surprising." Monica laughed once. Soft. Deadly. "Well, how generous of her to call me a whore with sentence structure." Mateo went still. My hand curled around the edge of the desk before I chose it. "Do not repeat that," I said. Monica looked at me. "Why? It sounds uglier when said plainly. It sounds like a reason to make Serafine regret having a mouth." Her brows lifted. "Careful, Carlos. That almost sounded like you were offended on my behalf. I dislike public stupidity. Lucky for you, the Underworld provides endless exercise." Mateo's phone buzzed again. His expression tightened further. Monica's gaze dropped to the device. "Oh, wonderful. Has someone else discovered concern?" Mateo looked at me first. "Speak," I ordered. "Lorenzo Varick has announced he intends to petition the elders to recognize him as Miss Abberdeen's public protector once she is recovered." The coffee cup hit the saucer hard enough to crack the silence. Monica smiled. This smile was worse than the last. "Recovered," she repeated. Mateo said nothing. "He said recovered?" she asked. "Yes." Monica set the cup down with careful precision. "From what? Bad lighting? Masculine decision-making? The emotional burden of watching Lorenzo speak in public? I should not have found the last one satisfying. I did. He is trying to create a formal claim," I said. Her eyes snapped to me. "He has no claim. No, not social. Not legal. Not emotional. Not decorative. Not even seasonal. I understood you the first time." "Did you?" She stepped closer. "Because men in your world have an extraordinary gift for understanding women only after they have already assigned them. That is not what I am doing." Her laugh had no warmth. "Carlos, you kidnapped me, moved me into your protected wing, assigned men outside my door, and now you are about to tell me whether I may answer a woman publicly, dragging my name through filth. Please explain the difference slowly. I would hate to miss the poetry." Mateo studied the floor like it had offered him asylum. I looked at him. "Leave." He did not wait to be asked twice. The door closed. Monica and I stood alone again, but the office no longer felt like a room built of wood and stone. It felt like a fuse. "You will not respond yet," I said. Her eyes flashed. "There it is. We do not know who is coordinating this. I know Seraphine is poisoning me, and Lorenzo is trying to wrap a leash in velvet. And I know someone got a threat through my perimeter less than a day after your name appeared in my leak. My name was used. Yes. The word left me before pride could stop it. Her anger paused. I had admitted too much, or perhaps exactly enough. I am not convinced of your innocence, I said. No, God forbid your emotional growth become reckless. But the evidence no longer points in one direction. She studied me. Was that meant to be reassuring? It was meant to be accurate. Try comforting someday. The novelty may injure you, but healing is possible. You are not making this easy. I am a kidnapped woman being slandered before lunch. Ease is not my priority. There it was again, the truth beneath the teeth. I moved around the desk. She watched me come closer, but she did not retreat. Monica Abberdeen held ground like retreat would offend the floor. You think answering Seraphine now gives you power, I said. It may give them more. I have survived women like Seraphine longer than you have been glaring professionally. She wants you emotional. She wants me silent. She wants you reactive. So do you. The accusation landed clean. I stopped in front of her, too close enough to see the faint shadow beneath her eyes. Close enough to notice she had braided defiance into every breath because the alternative was letting exhaustion show. I want you alive, I said. Her mouth parted slightly, only slightly. Then she recovered. That sentence would be far more moving if you had not personally created several of my current problems. I know. Silence. Her expression shifted again, not softening, not forgiving, but catching on the admission like silk on a blade. I had not meant to say it, but it was true. I had taken her, publicly, efficiently, cruelly enough that every coward in that room could pretend she had chosen disgrace. My hand lifted before I decided what it wanted. I stopped it inches from her face. She saw. Her breathing changed. Not fear. Not only fear. Carlos, she said quietly. My name sounded different now. Warning, yes, but not rejection. You are reckless, I said. No. You call women reckless when they do not obey quickly enough. I should have denied it. I did not. Her eyes searched mine. That was dangerous. More dangerous than Seraphine's rumors, Lorenzo's claim, the Rinaldi's note, because Monica looked at me as if she expected to find the worst thing in me and still planned to insult it properly. You should be careful, I said. If you get any closer, your guards might mistake it for a personality. The corner of my mouth almost moved. Almost. She noticed. Was that facial movement? She whispered. No. Good. I would hate to be responsible for structural collapse. The air between us tightened until humor could not hide what was beneath it. Her lips were too close, her eyes too bright, her anger too alive. I wanted to kiss her. The realization was clean and unacceptable. Not because she was beautiful. Many women were beautiful. Because I wanted her quiet for one reason now, and it was not obedience. The alarm screamed before I moved. Monica flinched. Every light in the office shifted from warm to red. I stepped in front of her instantly. The door burst open. Mateo appeared, gun drawn, face hard. Outer wall breach, east side. Monica's hand brushed the back of my jacket. One touch, small, gone almost immediately. Still, every violent instinct in me focused. Status, I said. Unknown. Security is moving. I turned to Monica. With me. She looked past me toward the hall. Is this the part where you say I told you so? No. How disappointing. I prepared a response. Move. This time she did. We cut through the protected wing with men falling in around us. The alarm pulsed against the walls. Monica kept pace barefoot, jaw tight, eyes sharp, refusing panic even as the house locked itself down around her. The secure suite doors opened at my command. I guided her inside without touching her more than necessary, then sealed the door behind us. The room was reinforced, monitored, windowless except for the screened internal glass. Designed to survive a siege. Monica looked around once. Then she saw the bed. One bed. Her eyes moved slowly from it to me. For the first time all day, the danger outside the walls had competition. Of course, she said, even your emergency plans are arrogant. The lock engaged behind us, and the alarm kept screaming.
Chapter 5. There was one bed. A house the size of a small kingdom, owned by a man rich enough to purchase silence by the acre, and his secure emergency suite had one bed, one chair, and the emotional warmth of a legal threat. I stared at the bed, then at Carlos, then back at the bed. Absolutely not. Carlos stood near the sealed door, one hand still close to the security panel, red alarm light cutting across his face in slow, pulsing flashes. He looked carved out of danger and bad decisions, which was rude because I was currently standing barefoot in a room with him and very limited furniture. "You are safe here," he said. "I am locked in a room with my kidnapper during an active security breach. Safety is doing a heroic amount of unpaid labor in that sentence." His gaze moved over me quickly, not in the way Lorenzo looked at me, like I was something he wanted people to see him having. Carlos looked like he was checking for damage, counting breaths, measuring threat. It should not have felt different. It did. I hated that. The alarm kept wailing beyond the thick walls, muffled but insistent. Somewhere outside this room, men with guns were moving through hallways, searching for whoever had slipped through Carlos Ravolenti's fortress. Inside, there was a bed, and Carlos, and me, wearing borrowed silk and resentment. I turned slowly, taking in the suite, because if panic wanted me, it would have to wait until after my evaluation. The walls were reinforced, dark-paneled, and undecorated, except for one abstract painting that looked like someone had spilled grief on canvas and framed it. The windows were not windows at all, only screened internal glass. A surveillance panel glowed near the door. There was a small table with water, a medical kit, and a drawer I strongly suspected would not open without Carlos's permission. The chair in the corner looked expensive, stiff, and designed by someone who believed comfort was how revolution started. "This room was designed by a man allergic to joy," I said. "It was designed to keep people alive." Interior design can do two things. Carlos looked at the bed, then the chair. "You will take the bed." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because if I did not laugh, I might notice that my hands were still shaking from the alarm. How noble. The kidnapper has manners. "I will take the chair. That chair looks like a punishment device for emotionally unavailable men. I have slept in worse." "That is not the inspirational statement you think it is." He crossed to the surveillance panel instead of answering, checking camera feeds with an expression so cold it made the red alarm light look embarrassed. His shoulders were rigid beneath his suit jacket. His jaw was tight. The Carlos Ravolenti who had accused me in a ballroom had been dangerous. This one was worse. This one was focused. This one had put himself between me and the door before I even knew where the threat was coming from. I wrapped my arms around myself, then immediately dropped them. Carlos saw. "You are afraid," he said. I gave him a bright, false smile. "I am offended. Fear has better lighting." "Monica?" "My name sounds like a court order when you say it." His eyes stayed on mine. "Someone breached the outer wall." "Yes, I gathered that from the screaming alarm and your sudden decision to become furniture in front of me." "You are allowed to be afraid." "How progressive. Does the hostage package come with emotional permission now?" He did not smile. That was the problem with Carlos. He let my jokes land and then stood there like the ground beneath them. Most men laughed when I deflected, or grew irritated, or tried to out-talk me. Carlos listened too closely, as if every sarcastic little thing I said was a curtain, and he was rude enough to look behind it. "I will not let them reach you," he said. The words hit wrong, not softly. Soft would have been easier to dismiss. They hit like a lock sliding into place. I looked away first, angry with myself for doing it. "You do understand that I do not find men deciding where I am allowed to stand especially romantic. This is not romance. No." I noticed the armed men. His mouth almost moved. Almost. The alarm cut off suddenly. The silence afterward was worse. Carlos touched the communication panel. "Report." Mateo's voice came through, low and controlled. "Sweep in progress. Breach point east wall. No intruder located yet." "No intruder?" Carlos asked. "Not yet." "Find them." "Yes, sir." The line went dead. I stared at the door. No intruder located. That meant either the intruder had escaped or someone was still inside. I wished my mind had not offered both options so efficiently. Carlos turned toward me. "Sit." I looked at him. "Do you ever get tired of making every verb sound like a threat?" "Yes." That surprised me enough to blink. He added, "But not tonight." Fine. That was almost funny. I sat on the edge of the bed because my legs had decided principles were less important than not falling over. The mattress was soft enough to be offensive. Of course, Carlos's emergency bed was comfortable. The man probably intimidated the furniture into excellence. He removed his jacket and set it over the back of the terrible chair. I looked at him. He looked at me. "No," I said. "You do not know what I am going to say. You are going to tell me to sleep while you sit in that chair, looking tragic and professionally alert." "I am not tragic." "You kidnapped a woman from a gala, locked her in a mansion, and now plan to spend the night brooding in a chair during a security breach. Carlos, if tragedy wore cufflinks, it would look exactly like you." He stared at me for a long second. Then he rolled up one sleeve. I should not have noticed his forearm. I was under duress. That seemed important legally and emotionally. "You talk more when you are unsettled," he said. "I talk more when men irritate me." "Then I must be exceptional." I paused. He said it completely, deadpan, not smiling, not warm, not even pleased with himself, which made it worse. I pointed at him. That was humor. No, that was absolutely humor. Dry, joyless, and in desperate need of sunlight, but humor. He turned away as if checking the panel again, but I saw the almost shift at the corner of his mouth, a dangerous little crack in the beast. My chest tightened, and I hated that too. The room settled into silence around us. Not peaceful. Never that. The kind of silence that came after violence had knocked and decided whether to enter. Carlos stood between me and the door. I sat on the bed I refused to share. And somewhere between the alarm, the threat, and the way his body remained angled toward danger instead of comfort, the air changed. Not enough to trust him. Enough to notice him differently. That was worse. He glanced back. "You should rest. I am not sleeping while you stand there like a haunted statue. I will sit." The chair is worse. It is a chair. It is a cry for help with legs. Monica. Carlos. His name came out softer than I meant it to. We both heard it. The room seemed to lean in. His eyes held mine, dark and unreadable, but there was something beneath the control now. Something alive. Something that had nothing to do with suspicion, and everything to do with the fact that we were locked in a room with one bed and too many things unsaid. I looked away before I could make the mistake of wanting an answer. "Fine," I said, forcing my voice back into place. "Sit in your emotional torture chair. Ruin your spine. I refuse responsibility for any dramatic posture-related injuries." Carlos walked to the chair, sat, back straight, eyes on the door. The man even sat like a warning. Minutes passed, then more. The alarm did not return, but the silence kept sharpening. Finally, I looked at him and sighed. "This is unbearable." His eyes moved to mine. "The threat? No. Your commitment to discomfort. That is exactly what every damaged man says before becoming everyone else's problem." He did not answer. But this time the silence was not cold. It was listening. And that somehow was far more dangerous. Carlos Ravolenti sat in the chair like a man personally assigned to punish comfort for existing. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Then enough time for my irritation to become a living thing with opinions. He did not move except to check the security panel. He did not complain. He did not fidget. He simply remained there, suit sleeves rolled, forearms braced against the arms of that miserable chair, eyes returning to the door every few seconds. Guarding me, or guarding the room from me. With Carlos, the difference stayed offensively unclear. "You know," I said, because silence had begun chewing on my nerves, "when people say a man is intense, I assume they mean emotionally complicated, not furniture adjacent." His eyes shifted to mine. "You dislike quiet." "I dislike being locked in a room with quiet. There is a difference. You talk when you are afraid. I also talk when I am hungry, irritated, insulted, or near men who decorate with grief. Do not flatter yourself by choosing fear." He held my gaze across the room. The worst thing about Carlos was that he did not rush into every opening I gave him. He waited. He let the words settle. He made my sarcasm feel like something he could see the seams of. "You said people adore you," he said. I looked down at the edge of the blanket beneath my hand. "People say many inaccurate things after champagne. They rely on you. That sounds less pretty, doesn't it?" "It sounds honest." I should have laughed. I almost did. Instead, I stared at the smooth, dark floor and felt exhaustion slip through one crack too many. They adore me when they need me, I said. When their sons insult the wrong men, when their husbands bring the wrong women, when their names are about to become jokes in rooms they cannot control. I lifted one shoulder. They adore me because I know how to make humiliation disappear before it grows teeth. Carlos was quiet, not cold, quiet. I hated that I knew the difference now. And what happens when you need something, he asked. A sharp little ache moved behind my ribs. I smiled before it could show. I lower my expectations, it saves time. His jaw tightened. Strange man. He looked angrier at that than he had when I accused him of kidnapping. You think fear is better? I asked. Yes. The answer came without hesitation. That should have unsettled me less than it did. Fear is clean, he said. It does not flatter. It does not pretend loyalty. It tells you exactly where everyone stands. That may be the saddest sentence ever spoken by a man sitting beside imported sheets. His eyes moved briefly to the bed, then back to me. Fear does not abandon you when courage becomes inconvenient. There it was, a locked door opening half an inch. Carlos Ravolenti, feared by men who swallowed bullets easier than apologies, believed fear was honest because worship had lied to him too. I did not know what to do with that. So naturally I attacked the chair. You cannot sit there all night. I can. I know you can. That is the problem. You look like a tragic monument to poor emotional development. Sleep, Monica. No. His gaze darkened. No? If I have to lie awake in this room, you are not going to sit over there brooding like a cathedral gargoyle with a bank account. I am not getting in that bed. Carlos, I am not inviting you to a honeymoon. I am inviting you to stop punishing your spine for sins it did not commit. His mouth almost moved. Almost. I pointed at the far edge of the mattress. There, you may occupy that unfortunate strip of bed, fully clothed, hands to yourself. No dramatic declarations, no breathing like a warning. I breathe like everyone else. You absolutely do not. He stood. The room seemed to shrink. That was the problem with men like Carlos. Even obedience looked dangerous on them. He crossed to the bed and sat at the far edge, leaving enough space between us for a priest, a lawyer, and several unresolved issues. Then he lay back stiffly, one arm behind his head, eyes still on the door. I stared at him. This is somehow worse. You requested it. I requested reasonable human behavior. You are lying there like a weapon someone placed on furniture. Sleep. I am trying. Your aura is loud. He turned his head. In the dim light, without the alarm bleeding red over his face, he looked less like a monster and more like a man who had made himself one, because the world rewarded him for it. That thought was dangerous. I rolled onto my side, facing away from him. The bed smelled faintly of clean linen and him. Cold air. Smoke. Something darker, warmer, impossible to name without becoming foolish. I did not sleep quickly. But eventually, exhaustion pulled me under. The dream was not blood or guns. It was worse. A ballroom with no doors, chandeliers bright as interrogation lamps, everyone smiling, everyone saying my name. Monica, darling, could you just, Miss Abberdeen, thank God, fix this. Hide this. Save this. Smile, Monica. Smile while they take. Smile while they watch. Smile while no one comes after you. I woke with a hard breath caught in my throat. For one terrible second, I did not know where I was. Then Carlos's voice came from behind me, low and steady. You are in the secure suite. I froze. He did not touch me. He did not move closer. There is no one inside but me, he said. My fingers twisted in the blanket. I forced air into my lungs and hated that he had heard. Hated that he knew. Hated most of all that his voice had helped. Unfortunately for the furniture, I whispered. A pause, then, the furniture will survive. That makes one of us. The words slipped out before I could polish them. Carlos went quiet. I closed my eyes, furious with myself. He did not ask, he did not demand confession. He simply stayed awake, guarding the door, guarding the silence, guarding something I had not given him permission to see. Morning arrived, pale and gray. I woke warmer than I should have been, closer than I should have been. My shoulder was near his arm. My knee had crossed some invisible border during the night. Carlos lay still beside me, already awake, eyes open, body controlled with impossible discipline. I looked at the space between us, then at him. If you call this security, I said, voice rough with sleep. I may throw something. It was security. I grabbed the nearest pillow and threw it at his chest. He caught it without even sitting up. Show off, I muttered. A knock struck the secure door before he could answer. Carlos was on his feet in one smooth movement, pillow still in hand, all softness gone. Mateo's voice came through the panel. Breach sweep complete. We found a Rinaldi marker near the east wall. No intruder inside. They wanted us to know they reached the perimeter. My stomach dropped. Carlos's face went lethal. The Rinaldis. Before I could speak, Mateo continued. There is more. We traced pieces of the original leak chatter. Serafine Valles and Lorenzo Varick both had knowledge of details before the information became public. The room tilted, not with fear this time, with clarity. Carlos looked back at me. I took the pillow from his hand, because if my enemies were going to organize themselves, I deserved something to hold. Wonderful, I said, my voice sweet enough to cut. My enemies are networking. I hate when they show initiative.
Chapter 6. By breakfast, Monica Abberdeen had thrown one pillow at me, threatened my furniture, survived a perimeter breach, and accused my enemies of networking like it was a personal insult. Then she walked into my office barefoot, wearing borrowed silk, and the expression of a woman who had decided captivity was inconvenient, but not fatal. I was beginning to understand why half the underworld worshipped her. The other half should have feared her sooner. Mateo stood beside my desk with 3 separate reports laid out in front of him. Rinaldi marker at the east wall. Early leak chatter traced through 2 private channels connected to Serafine Valles' circle and Lorenzo Varick's people. No confirmation yet of who paid the courier. No confirmation of who forged Monica's credential. Enough smoke to know there was fire. Not enough to know who held the match. Monica glanced at the reports, then at me. You look like you're about to say something unpleasant. I need to speak with you. Wonderful. That usually goes so well for women trapped in your house. Mateo shifted his weight. I looked at him. He found immediate interest in the far wall. Monica came closer to the desk, stole my coffee without asking, took a sip, and made a face. This is yours? Yes. It tastes like it was brewed during sentencing. You asked for coffee. I asked for coffee, not a legal consequence in a cup. I should have been irritated. I was. Not enough. That was becoming a problem. I rested one hand on the edge of the desk. I may have acted on incomplete information. Monica froze. Not dramatically, just enough. Then she lowered the cup with exaggerated care. Was that an apology or did your pride just cough? Mateo's shoulders went rigid. I ignored him. It was an acknowledgement. Oh, worse, those wear uglier shoes. Monica, there it is, the court order voice. She leaned one hip against the chair opposite my desk. Try again. Use smaller words. They may hurt less. I stared at her. She stared back. The woman had been taken from a gala, accused before the city's most powerful families, threatened through a note, locked behind my security, and nearly targeted by men who had reached my perimeter. Still, she demanded grammar from danger. I had known killers with less nerve. I was wrong, I said, each word clean and reluctant, to assume your guilt. Her face changed. Not softness. Never that easily. But the sharp amusement flickered into something quieter before she covered it. Well, she said, that was painful to watch, but recognizable. Mateo looked down at his reports, wisely expressionless. Monica turned one page with the tip of her finger. Do not misunderstand me, Carlos. I am still furious. I assumed. Good. I would hate for my emotional state to suffer from poor communication. You were framed. Likely. That does not mean you are safe. I have noticed the theme. I picked up the report tied to the early leak chatter. Serafine had pieces of the information before the public release. Lorenzo's people had different pieces. Monica's mouth curved without humor. Of course they did. Why let one enemy embarrass you when 2 can coordinate badly? They may not be working together directly. They do not need to be. People like Serafine and Lorenzo can ruin a life in separate rooms and still call it coincidence. I studied her. You know how to answer them. Her gaze lifted to mine. Yes. Then do it. That surprised her. I saw it before she disguised it with a sip of my condemned coffee. Excuse me? You want to answer the rumor. Do it. Just like that? No. I slid a blank sheet toward her. Controlled. Strategic. No direct accusations until we have proof. Nothing that gives Seraphine room to weep in public or Lorenzo room to pose as offended. Monica looked at the paper, then at me. You're giving me access to the narrative? I am giving you a weapon you already know how to use. The silence after that was different. Less hostile. More dangerous. Matteo noticed it too, because he suddenly became fascinated by the reports again. Monica sat, not because I told her, because she chose to. That mattered. She took a pen from my desk. Your original statement. Matteo handed her the draft. She read 2 lines and looked personally wounded. Carlos. What? This sounds like a threat carved into a tomb. It is clear. It is dead. It is effective. It is aggressively unmarried to charm. I do not need charm. No, clearly. You've made brooding a municipal hazard. She scratched through the first paragraph. This says, in very expensive words, that anyone discussing me will be punished. They will. That makes you look guilty. It makes me look dangerous. It makes you look like a man trying to silence a woman's scandal by standing on it in polished shoes. Matteo made a low sound. I did not look at him because she was right, and I disliked audiences when being corrected. Monica kept writing. Her pen moved quickly. No hesitation, no wasted line. She did not soften the statement. She sharpened it. Here, she said after a few minutes, turning the paper toward me. We do not deny too loudly. Loud denial smells like panic. We express concern over the misuse of private family channels, emphasize that several names appear to have been used without consent, and make the rumor itself look tasteless. Tasteless, I repeated. People forgive cruelty. They hide from scandal. They fear violence. But in our circles, her smile became precise. Tastelessness is fatal. I read the statement. It never named Seraphine. It did not have to. Every line was built to make a woman spreading concern look desperate for attention. I looked up. This is vicious. No, Monica said. This is polite. Vicious would require italics. Matteo coughed once. This time I let him live. Monica continued, already reaching for another page. Now Lorenzo. No, her eyes narrowed. Carlos. He is irrelevant. Men like Lorenzo become dangerous when powerful men dismiss them as irrelevant. It makes them theatrical. I do not fear theatrics. You should. Half the wars in your world begin because a vain man did not feel watched enough. She wrote again, slower this time, smiling to herself in a way that should have concerned every man named Lorenzo. We do not attack him directly. That gives him romance. We let people wonder why his rescue campaign began before anyone asked for one. Matteo leaned forward despite himself. Monica tapped the pen against the paper. A little whisper, nothing official, something like poor Lorenzo always did mistake proximity for destiny, or perhaps one hopes devotion is not merely ambition wearing perfume. Matteo blinked. I read the line twice. Monica's smile widened. Too much? It is elegant. Her eyes flicked up. For 1 second I saw the compliment land before she could swat it away. Then she leaned back. Careful. Praise from kidnappers can confuse the furniture. You are good at this. I know. No. I held her gaze. You are dangerous at this. The room quieted. Something shifted in her expression again. Not surrender. Not trust. Recognition. She had spent years being adored for making ugly things pretty, but this was the first time perhaps someone had named the blade instead of praising the shine. Her voice came softer. You sound almost approving. I am. That must be uncomfortable. Extremely. The corner of her mouth moved. Then Matteo's phone buzzed. He checked it, and the small moment died. Seraphine has announced a private salon tonight, he said. Invited families only. Topic is unofficial, but the message is spreading. Monica reached for the paper. Let me guess. Matteo looked at me. I did not need the confirmation. Monica gave a bright, cold smile. My situation. I took the phone from Matteo and read the message myself. Seraphine had not named Monica. She did not need to. The salon was about reputation, safety, and the unfortunate consequences of women becoming entangled with dangerous men. I set the phone down. You are not attending. Monica stood so fast the chair shifted behind her. Oh, Carlos. Her voice was sweet enough to draw blood. You kidnapped me from a room full of gossip. You do not get to hide me from the consequences. This is bait, yes, and unlike you, Seraphine will expect me to arrive frightened. You will stay here. Her smile vanished. No, The word cut the office in half. Matteo went still. I looked at Monica Abberdeen, barefoot in my office, surrounded by reports, rumors, and men with guns, and saw exactly what Seraphine was about to learn. Monica did not need permission to enter a battlefield. She only needed the door opened. Monica's refusal did not raise its voice. It did not need to. One word from her cut through my office with more authority than most men managed with a room full of guns. No. Matteo went still beside the desk. I looked at her. You are not walking into Seraphine's salon. Monica smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made wiser men check for exits. Carlos, I was taken from a room full of gossip, accused in front of half the underworld, and turned into a cautionary tale by a woman whose favorite hobby is concern with teeth. I am not staying in your house while she rearranges my reputation like furniture. It is bait, obviously, but it is bait wrapped in silk, and if I do not answer it, every woman in that room will assume I am either ashamed, broken, or enjoying your captivity. My hand tightened on the back of the chair. None of those assumptions keep you alive. No, she said, stepping closer. But silence will not keep me respected. The sentence landed harder than it should have. Because she was right. The world I ruled understood force. Monica's world understood a different violence. A woman could be ruined without blood touching the floor. A rumor could do what knives could not. Seraphine Valles knew that. So did Monica. I hated that she had to. You will not go alone, I said. Her brows lifted. Progress. The kidnapping house has discovered compromise. You will go with me, my men, and an exit plan. How romantic. This is not romance. You keep saying that in rooms where you control the doors. It loses elegance each time. Matteo cleared his throat carefully. I will prepare the cars. Armored, I said. Monica gave a delicate sigh. Of course. Nothing says social rehabilitation like arriving in a vehicle designed for political assassination. I turned to her. You wanted to answer Seraphine. I did. I did not say I wanted to arrive looking like a head of state with trust issues. You will survive the aesthetic. I always do. It's the men that exhaust me. 2 hours later, the private salon was already full when Monica entered beside me. Seraphine Valles had chosen the Bellari Conservatory, a glass-walled room dripping with orchids, gold chairs, and women who smiled as if they had never once enjoyed a public execution. Monica walked in wearing deep blue silk borrowed from whatever emergency wardrobe my housekeeper had assembled. No jewels except small pearl earrings. No excessive armor. No visible panic. She looked like calm had dressed itself for war. The room noticed. So did Seraphine. Her smile widened with the exact amount of false warmth required to make a weaker woman doubt her instincts. Monica, Seraphine said, crossing the room with open hands. Thank God you are safe. Monica accepted the kiss beside her cheek without returning it. How kind, Seraphine. I was beginning to worry no one had made my abduction about themselves. A ripple moved through the room. Small, fatal. Seraphine's mouth tightened before she repaired it. We were all terribly concerned. Yes, Monica said. I heard. Your concern travels faster than most couriers. I stood at Monica's side, close enough to intervene, far enough that every person in the room understood she had chosen to speak for herself. That mattered. I did not like that it mattered. Seraphine folded one hand over her heart. You must understand how troubling this looks. Carlos Ravolenti taking you from a gala. Your name tied to private information. Now these whispers about older files and dangerous men. Her eyes glistened without wetting. Impressive discipline. People are worried about your judgment. Monica tilted her head. My judgment? Yes, darling. Powerful men can be compelling. There it was. The insult wrapped so prettily half the room might have applauded the ribbon. Monica laughed softly. Not loud, not cruel. Worse, amused. Seraphine, I admire your dedication. Truly, some women would need a confession, a witness, or at least a fact before calling another woman compromised. You managed it with posture. A few women looked down to hide smiles. Seraphine's eyes cooled. I would never call you compromised. No, of course not. You would only imply it in expensive rooms and let frightened people do the rest. The room shifted. Seraphine felt it. Monica felt it too. I saw the instant she sharpened. You know what fascinates me? Monica continued. How quickly your concern arrived. Before most families knew I had even left the gala, you were already worried in complete sentences. Seraphine's smile strained. Concern is not a crime. No, but preparation is sometimes revealing. Silence. Beautiful, dangerous silence. Then Lorenzo Varick stepped forward from near the windows, dressed in charcoal and injured pride. Enough, he said. Monica, you do not need to defend yourself while standing beside the man who took you. I felt every instinct in me turn toward him. Monica's hand moved slightly, not touching me, stopping me. That alone annoyed me enough to keep still. She turned to Lorenzo with a sigh. Lorenzo, the last time you respected my wishes, I had to change my address. A woman near the tea service coughed into her napkin. Lorenzo flushed. I am trying to help you. You arrived at my humiliation with witnesses and called it devotion. I offered protection. Protection that requires a woman to look ruined first is not protection. It is ambition with flowers. The room turned on him so quietly he did not realize he had lost until his face did. I should have enjoyed it less. I did not. Monica had taken the entire salon without raising her voice. She had turned Seraphine's concern into vanity and Lorenzo's devotion into performance. She had done it with silk, wit, and a smile sharp enough to leave marks. She was not harmless. She had never been harmless, and I had dragged her into my house thinking she was either guilty or useful. I had underestimated her in the wrong direction. Seraphine, recovered enough to whisper, I only hope Carlos has not frightened you into this. Monica looked at her for a long moment. Then she smiled. Seraphine, if Carlos frightened me into obedience, I promise you would be the first to know. The miracle would deserve witnesses. This time, the laughter came openly. Seraphine's face went pale beneath the powder. Enough. I placed a hand lightly at Monica's lower back. Not pushing, not claiming, guiding. She stiffened for half a breath. Then let me. That half breath nearly destroyed my concentration. We are leaving, I said. Monica murmured. So soon, I was starting to enjoy myself. I noticed. I was very restrained. That concerns me. Her mouth curved as we crossed toward the exit. Outside, the night air hit colder than expected. My men moved around us at once, forming a shield between the conservatory doors and the cars waiting beneath the side arch. Monica took 2 steps beside me. Then one of the valet boys moved wrong. Not toward the car, toward her. My body reacted before thought did. I caught Monica around the waist and pulled her behind me as the boy's hand flashed toward her arm. A second man came from the left hedge. Rinaldi. I knew it before I saw the marker at his cuff. My men surged. The first attacker hit the ground hard. The second tried to run and made it 4 steps before Matteo cut him off. Monica's fingers gripped the back of my shirt. For 1 second, the entire world narrowed to that touch. Then she released me as if she had been burned. I am fine, she said immediately. You were almost taken. I noticed. Her voice shook only at the edge, and she covered it with a smile I wanted to tear the world apart for making necessary. Very rude. I was already busy being taken by you. Not funny. Not this time. I turned to face her fully. The salon doors had opened behind us. Seraphine stood frozen in the glow. Lorenzo stared, useless and pale. Every witness who had come to watch Monica's reputation bleed had instead seen someone reach for her in the dark. Good. Let them see. I stepped closer to Monica, close enough that only she could hear the worst of my voice. No one takes you from me. Her eyes widened. Not because she misunderstood, because she understood too well. The sentence had left my mouth before I could discipline it into strategy. Not from ownership, not only, from something more dangerous. Fear. Monica stared at me, breath caught, sarcasm gone for 1 bare second. Then she whispered, Carlos. This time, my name was not a joke. It was a warning. And I knew, with a clarity that cut deeper than any blade, that I was no longer protecting Monica Abberdeen because she was useful to my investigation. I was protecting her because the thought of another man's hand closing around her made something violent inside me want to burn the whole city clean.
Chapter 7. By midnight, Carlos Ravolenti had turned his estate into a fortress, his fortress into a cage, and my hallway into a small military occupation with excellent tailoring. There were 2 guards outside my door now, 2 more at the end of the corridor, one near the stairwell, another by the private elevator. If a woman wanted to feel safe, perhaps that should have comforted her. I wanted to throw a vase, a tasteful one, something expensive enough to make a point. Carlos stood in the center of the protected wing, speaking quietly to Matteo while men moved around us with weapons, earpieces, and the grim efficiency of people who had been personally offended by oxygen. His jacket was gone, his sleeves were rolled. There was a faint smear of blood along one cuff that did not belong to him. I had noticed, I wished I had not. Matteo finished whatever report he was giving and stepped away. Carlos turned toward me. That was my first mistake, looking directly at him, because the Carlos who had pulled me behind him outside the Bellari Conservatory was still there beneath the polished control. I could see it in his shoulders, in the hard line of his mouth, in the way his gaze moved over me as if checking again that no one had successfully stolen a piece of me. No, I said. He stopped. I have not spoken. You were about to. You do not know that. Carlos, your silence has posture. His eyes narrowed slightly. You are staying in this wing until we know how the Rinaldis reached the salon perimeter. There it is. You were almost taken. Yes, and now you are trying to protect me by making the first kidnapping look casual. His jaw tightened. Good. I was not proud of myself for enjoying it, but I had been abducted, slandered, threatened, almost grabbed in public, and marched back into a house where every door suddenly had a man beside it. I was allowed one petty pleasure. You will not leave without escort, he said. Lovely. Do I get a bell around my neck, or does one of your men just announce me like bad weather? This is not a joke. No, it is a pattern. His gaze sharpened. Explain. I stepped closer because fear made me furious, and fury made me stupid in very specific ways. You take me from the gala because evidence points at me. You keep me here because someone threatens me. You move me near your suite because your perimeter fails. You double guards because men try to grab me. Every time danger breathes in my direction, your solution is to make my world smaller. His eyes did not leave mine. Smaller is alive, he said. So is a painting. I am not interested. One of the guards at the end of the hallway suddenly found the wall fascinating. Carlos's voice lowered. You think freedom matters if you are dead? I think survival without choice starts to look suspiciously like ownership when a man keeps holding the keys. The words hit. I saw it, not in his face. Carlos had trained his face too well, but in the stillness, the terrible, precise quiet of a man who had just been cut somewhere under the armor. For half a breath, neither of us spoke. Then Matteo appeared at the corridor entrance with a phone in hand, expression set in the way people looked before delivering news that deserved a drink. Sir? Carlos did not look away from me. What? Matteo's eyes flicked to me. I hated that. If the news involved my name, I wanted it delivered to my face, not negotiated over my head like weather. Say it, I snapped. Matteo looked at Carlos. Carlos gave one short nod. Matteo stepped closer. Lorenzo Varick has filed his petition. My stomach went cold. What petition? I asked, though I already knew. Matteo's mouth tightened. With the elders. He is formally requesting recognition as your public protector until the situation with Ravolenti House is resolved. For 1 second, sound vanished. Not because I was afraid, half because rage had swallowed the room whole. Then I laughed. It came out bright, polished, horrible. My public protector. Carlos went very still beside me. Matteo looked as if he wanted to be anywhere else, perhaps another country. Lorenzo claims your reputation has been compromised, he continued carefully. He says someone outside Ravolenti influence should ensure your safety and restore confidence in your independence. I stared at him, then at Carlos, then back at Matteo. Restore confidence in my independence by assigning me to a man who once sent 12 pages of poetry about my wrists. Matteo blinked. Carlos's expression became lethal. He wrote what? Oh, please do not look murderous over the poetry. It gives the poetry too much dignity. Carlos stepped closer to Matteo and took the phone from his hand. His eyes scanned the screen. The temperature of the hallway dropped. I knew that look now. Not anger. Not exactly. Anger in Carlos was too common a word. This was calculation wrapped around violence and made presentable. No, he said. The word was quiet. Final. I folded my arms. How helpful. The men are voting. His gaze snapped to mine. He has no right to make that petition. Correct. No elder will recognize it. You hope. His eyes darkened. I know. Because you scare them? Because Varick is weak. I laughed again. and this time there was no polish left on it. Carlos, men do not have to be strong to damage women. They only need a room willing to listen. That landed harder than I expected. His face did not soften, but his eyes changed. Mateo lowered his gaze. Good. Let the hallway hear it. Let every armed man in this gorgeous prison understand that power was not always a gun or a fist or a threat made in a low voice. Sometimes power was a formal petition written in elegant language that turned a woman into something to be managed. Carlos handed the phone back to Mateo. Find out which elders received it, who answered, who hesitated, who forwarded it. Yes, sir. And Varric. Mateo looked up. Carlos's voice went flat. If he comes near my gates, he does not leave standing. My pulse jumped. Not because the threat was shocking, because part of me, the furious, humiliated part, wanted to say thank you. That was unacceptable. No, I said sharply. Carlos looked at me. No? He repeated. Do not turn my anger into your performance. His eyes narrowed. He is trying to claim authority over you. And you threatening to break his legs does what, exactly? Prove I am surrounded by reasonable choices? You want me to do nothing? I want you to stop deciding that every insult against me belongs in your hands first. Mateo silently disappeared. Coward, but a smart one. Carlos and I were alone in the hallway now, except for the guards pretending not to breathe. He stepped closer. I refused to move back. You think this is about performance, he said. I think men like you and Lorenzo both enjoy speaking the language of protection when the grammar is possession. His face hardened. Do not compare me to him. Then stop standing in the same sentence. The silence that followed felt dangerous enough to draw blood. Carlos's gaze moved over my face slowly, and I hated the way my skin noticed. Hated that the memory of his hand at my waist outside the salon still lived in my body. Hated that when those men reached for me, his voice had been the thing that cut through the panic. No one takes you from me. The words had followed me all the way back to his house. They had not sounded like strategy. They had sounded like fear. That was the problem. Fear from a man like Carlos Ravolenti did not tremble. It conquered. His voice dropped. Did Lorenzo ever have a claim? The question was so controlled, so cold, it took me a second to hear the thing underneath. Jealousy. Real. Ugly. Uninvited. My breath caught before I could stop it. Then I smiled, because if my heart wanted to make foolish decisions, my mouth could at least remain loyal. Lorenzo has a claim on hair oil and misplaced confidence, I said. Nothing else. Carlos did not smile. He did not relax. He only stepped closer, close enough that the guards at the end of the hall might as well have vanished. That is not what I asked. The air tightened between us. My sarcasm faltered at the edge of something hotter, sharper, far more dangerous than fear. Carlos Ravolenti was jealous, and worse. Some reckless part of me wanted to know how far he would go before he admitted it. Carlos Ravolenti waited for my answer, like the hallway itself had been ordered not to breathe. I should have laughed. I wanted to. Laughter was easier than whatever his question had done to the space between us. Did Lorenzo ever have a claim? The words were absurd, offensive, almost funny, if they had not come from a man standing close enough for me to feel the heat of him through the cold air of the protected wing. I lifted my chin. No, Carlos did not move. Apparently, one clean answer was not enough for men with empires and unresolved emotional architecture. No, I repeated slower. Lorenzo never had a claim, not on my hand, not on my future, not on my wrists, despite his disturbing literary enthusiasm. His eyes did not soften. Did you want him? The question landed like a blade laid flat against skin. Not cutting yet. Promising it could. I stared at him. I have wanted dental work more. His mouth stayed serious. Of course it did. You think that was a joke, I said. I think you use jokes when you do not want to answer fully. Fine. Fully? No. I did not want Lorenzo. I did not encourage Lorenzo. I did not invite Lorenzo to imagine himself as my protector, my savior, my husband, my tragic poet, or whatever ridiculous position he has invented this week. Carlos's gaze held mine with a terrible focus. The guards at the far end of the hall had gone aggressively still. Every man in the corridor was pretending not to listen, which meant every man in the corridor was absolutely listening. I stepped closer anyway. You have no right to be jealous. The words came out quieter than I intended. That made them worse. Carlos looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, I know. I had been prepared for denial, for arrogance, for some cold, masculine correction about strategy, threat assessment, public optics, territorial boundaries, or whatever language men used when they did not want to admit their emotions had crawled out of the basement. I was not prepared for honesty. It knocked the next insult clean out of my mouth. You know, I repeated. Yes. And you are still doing it? Yes. Carlos, that is not how moral improvement works. No. I narrowed my eyes. You are very calm for a man admitting he is wrong. I have experience being wrong. That is the first unbelievable thing you have said. His gaze dropped briefly. Not to my mouth this time, to my hands. They were curled tighter than I realized. I relaxed them immediately, which was foolish because now he knew I had noticed too. I do not like hearing men speak as if you can be assigned, he said. Something in my chest shifted. I hated it. Assigned, I echoed. Given. Claimed. Protected by petition. Transferred from one man's authority to another's. His voice stayed low, but there was violence under it. No one in that room has the right to decide where you belong. I looked at him, this impossible man who had dragged me out of a gala in front of everyone, then had the nerve to furious that another man wanted to claim authority over me. I should have thrown the nearest vase. Unfortunately, the protected wing had terrible decorative availability. You kidnapped me, I said. His face went still. Do not stand here sounding noble because Lorenzo used cleaner stationery. You took me. Publicly, politely, efficiently. You made it easy for every coward in that ballroom to pretend I had choices. Silence folded around us. This time I did not soften the words with a joke. I let him have the full weight of them. Carlos took it. That was the problem. He did not flinch, did not defend, did not turn cruel because I had touched truth too sharply. He looked at me and said, I was wrong to take you. The hallway disappeared. Only that sentence remained. I had wanted him to admit it. I had not expected the admission to hurt. Maybe because it came too late to undo the humiliation. Maybe because a small, dangerous part of me had begun to understand that Carlos Ravolenti was capable of learning, and that made him harder to hate cleanly. I swallowed. That apology still has several crimes attached to it. I know. Stop saying reasonable things. It is unsettling. His eyes darkened, but not with anger, with something worse. Restraint. I want you safe, he said. Safe is not enough if it comes with a locked door. I am learning that. My breath caught. It was ridiculous, the force of it. 3 words. That was all. No poetry about wrists. No grand declaration before witnesses. No dramatic speech polished for an audience. Just a dangerous man admitting he had not known how to protect without possessing. And trying. The air changed again, slowly. Terribly. Carlos stepped closer, stopping with enough space between us to prove he could. My back nearly brushed the wall, but he had not crowded me there. Not trapped me. Not touched me. The choice sat between us, alive and waiting. I want you, he said. The honesty of it stole every clever thing I owned. His voice stayed controlled, but his eyes did not. They were dark and fixed on me with a hunger that did not feel like Lorenzo's vanity or the Underworld's worship. It felt more dangerous than both because it did not ask me to perform. I forced air into my lungs. Because Lorenzo reached first? No. Because another man filed a petition and bruised your ego? No. Because you like winning? Yes, he said. I blinked. He continued, but not this. My pulse betrayed me first. Then my mouth tried to rescue what dignity remained. That was dangerously close to romantic. You should sit down before it spreads. His gaze dropped to my lips. This time he did not hide it fast enough. Heat moved through me, sharp and unwanted and impossible to laugh away. He could have kissed me. I knew it with the kind of certainty that made the floor feel less reliable. Worse, I could have let him. The thought terrified me more than the guards, the locked doors, Lorenzo's petition, Seraphine's smile, and the Rinaldi's hands reaching from the dark, because wanting Carlos was not convenient. It was not safe. It was not sensible. It was a match in a room full of oil. I pressed one hand lightly to his chest before he moved closer. Mistake. His heartbeat was steady beneath my palm. Mine was not. Prove it, I whispered. His eyes held mine. How? By not treating me like something you stole well. The words changed him, not visibly to anyone else, maybe. But I felt it under my hand. The restraint tightening, the want going still. The beast obeying the woman he had taken because she had finally asked for something he could not force. He lifted his hand. For one dizzy second, I thought he would cover mine. Instead, he reached past me and touched the wall beside my shoulder, giving himself distance without stepping away completely. He did not kiss me. That restraint ruined me far more efficiently than his mouth would have. "Monica," he said, voice rougher now. "No," I said, because if he said anything soft, I might do something catastrophic. "Do not make this tender. I am still furious, and your house still looks like a wealthy funeral." The corner of his mouth almost moved, almost. A knock struck the far door, hard and urgent. I snatched my hand back like I had been caught committing treason. Mateo entered, took one look at the distance between us, and became professionally blind. "Sir," he said. Carlos did not turn right away. "Report." Mateo's gaze flicked to me. We intercepted communications from Lorenzo's people. My stomach tightened. Carlos finally faced him. "And? Lorenzo plans to arrive here tomorrow with witnesses. Officially, he is demanding Miss Abberdeen's release under his protector petition." My laugh came out before I could stop it. Cold. "Of course he is." Mateo's expression darkened. "There is more. Seraphine's circle appears to be encouraging it. The plan is to make Ravolenti House look guilty and make Miss Abberdeen look ruined, unless Varick publicly rescues her." The hallway tilted, then steadied. Not because I was calm, because rage, when pure enough, had excellent posture. Carlos's voice went flat. "I will block the gates." "No," I said. Both men looked at me. I smiled. This time I meant every inch of it. "No gates, no hiding, no dragging him away before he embarrasses himself." I turned to Carlos. "He wants witnesses?" Carlos studied my face. "You're thinking something reckless. I am thinking something well lit, Monica." I stepped past him, pulse still unsteady from what had almost happened between us and now sharpened by what would happen next. "I want an audience." Carlos's eyes narrowed. "That is a mistake." "No," I said, already tasting the pleasure of Lorenzo Varick finally learning the difference between a woman being silent and a woman waiting. "I have always wanted to reject a man with proper lighting."
Chapter 8. Lorenzo Varick arrived at my estate with 6 witnesses, 4 guards, 3 black cars, 2 cameramen, and 1 enormous bouquet of white roses that made me consider murder before breakfast. Monica stood beside me at the upstairs window, looking down at the driveway with the expression of a woman watching a clown enter a church. "The flowers," she said. I glanced at her. "The men are the problem." "No, Carlos. The men are expected. The flowers are unforgivable." Below us, Lorenzo stepped out of his lead car in a gray suit too soft for war and too dramatic for dignity. He held the bouquet himself, which told me everything I needed to know about the performance. His witnesses fanned out behind him, careful to look concerned but not frightened. 2 elderly family representatives, 1 gossip courier dressed as an assistant, a Bellari cousin, a Valles woman pretending not to represent Seraphine, a staged rescue, a public claim, a leash wrapped in roses. "I will have him removed," I said. Monica did not look away from the window. "No. We discussed this. We discussed you not making decisions for me. You struggled, but there was progress. He is on my property, and somehow the flowers are still the biggest crime." I turned toward Mateo, who stood near the door with a tablet in hand. "Bring men to the front drive." Monica looked at me then, not sharply, worse, patiently. "Carlos." I hated when she said my name, like she had decided I was difficult but salvageable. "He came to humiliate you," I said. "He came to rescue a version of me that only exists in his imagination." Her mouth curved. "I would like to introduce him to reality. He expects an audience. Then we should not disappoint him." Mateo's face remained blank, but his eyes shifted briefly toward me. Even he knew better than to argue. I looked down at Lorenzo again. The man had positioned himself at the base of my front steps, bouquet in one hand, expression solemn, as though he were preparing to retrieve a saint from a dragon's tower. My dragon's tower. My woman. No, not mine. That correction scraped through me like a blade dragged across bone. Monica was not mine because I wanted her, not because I protected her. Not because the thought of Lorenzo speaking her name with claim in his voice made violence rise clean and hot in my throat. If she chose me one day, it would not be because I took the choice first. I had promised myself that after the hallway. Then Monica moved toward the door. I caught her wrist before thought caught up with me. She stopped, looked down at my hand. I released her immediately. The loss of contact felt like punishment. "Do not step in front of me down there," she said quietly. I held her gaze. "If he reaches for you, he will not reach for me. If he does, then you may frighten the flowers." My mouth almost moved. She saw it. "Was that facial movement, Carlos?" "No." "Shame. I had witnesses." Then she walked past me. I followed, because restraint did not mean absence. Because learning not to own her did not mean allowing fools to circle her unguarded. Because if Lorenzo Varick believed I would stand too far away while he tried to turn Monica into a public object, he had misunderstood both my patience and his own lifespan. By the time we reached the front doors, the witnesses were arranged exactly as expected, close enough to hear, far enough to claim innocence if violence happened. Men and women who had come to watch Monica either be recovered, ruined, or forced into gratitude. Monica paused at the threshold. She wore ivory today, not white, not surrender. Ivory silk with a narrow waist, bare throat, no heavy jewels. Elegant enough to remind the room she had never needed armor to be dangerous. Her hand brushed the doorframe. One breath. Then she stepped outside. The driveway went silent. Lorenzo's face changed the instant he saw her. Relief, triumph, possession dressed as devotion. "Monica," he breathed. I wanted to break his jaw, for the way he made her name sound like an announcement of ownership. Monica descended the steps slowly, not because she was afraid, because she understood theater better than anyone in the city and had decided to use his stage against him. I stayed 2 steps behind her and to the side. Close enough, not in front. Every witness noticed. Good. Let them. Lorenzo lifted the bouquet. I came as soon as I could. Monica looked at the roses, then at him. Did the florist delay you? A witness coughed. Lorenzo's smile tightened. Even now, you make jokes. Someone has to. You brought props. His expression flickered, but he recovered. I know you are frightened. I watched Monica's shoulders settle. There it was, the blade leaving the sheath. I am many things today, Lorenzo. Frightened of you is not one of them. A ripple moved through the gathered witnesses. Lorenzo glanced at them, then lifted his voice. Monica, you do not have to pretend here. We all saw what happened at the gala. We all know Ravolenti took you against your will. Monica tilted her head. You are very attached to saying things everyone already knows. I am here to restore what was damaged. Beside me, Matteo shifted his stance. I did not move. Not because I was calm, because Monica had asked me not to stand in front of her. Lorenzo stepped onto the first stair. My body tightened. Monica raised one finger without looking back at me. A command, to me, in front of witnesses. Every violent instinct in me despised it. Every other part obeyed. Lorenzo opened his arms slightly, roses crushed between his fingers. Come home with me. Let me protect you properly. Let me show the elders that you are not lost to this house. Monica said nothing. 1 second. 2. 3. She let the silence stretch until Lorenzo began to fill it with his own discomfort. I have petitioned formally, he continued, voice swelling with importance. The elders will hear me. They know your position has been compromised. They know a woman of your reputation cannot remain under the roof of a man like Carlos Ravolenti without consequence. There it was, the ugly truth under the polished rescue. Not safety, reputation, not Monica. The idea of Monica, still useful if transferred cleanly from one man's control to another's. My hand curled at my side. Monica finally smiled, sweetly, dangerously. Oh, Lorenzo, she said. You practiced that. His face flushed. I speak from the heart. Then your heart needs an editor. One of the older witnesses looked down too quickly. Lorenzo's grip tightened around the flowers. I am trying to save you. From what? He blinked. From him. Monica glanced back at me for half a breath, not asking permission, not seeking rescue, acknowledging the irony. Then she faced Lorenzo again. Lorenzo, if I needed saving from Carlos Ravolenti, I would not send for a man who once lost an argument to a seating chart. The witnesses shifted. The Bellari cousin's mouth opened, then closed. Lorenzo went still. That line had hit pride. Good. Pride bled faster than flesh in public. He lowered the flowers. You are not yourself. Monica's smile sharpened. Men say that so often when women stop being convenient. His jaw clenched. He has influenced you. Carlos? She glanced at me again. He can barely influence his own curtains. That time, I almost smiled. Almost. She caught it anyway, even with her back mostly turned. Do not encourage yourself, she murmured. Then she returned her attention to Lorenzo, and the air changed. The comedy remained, but under it came steel. You came here with witnesses, she said. With flowers, with a petition, with a speech. You did not ask what I wanted. You did not ask whether I felt safe. You did not ask whether your interference would make my position worse. Lorenzo's face darkened. I came because I care. No, Monica said, soft enough that everyone leaned in. You came because my humiliation gave you an opening. The driveway went utterly still, and for the first time since he arrived, Lorenzo Varick looked afraid. Not of me, of her. Lorenzo Varick looked at Monica Abberdeen as if she had slapped him with every rose in his hand. She had not raised her voice. She had not needed to. That was the beautiful, lethal thing about Monica. She could destroy a man's public fantasy without moving anything but her mouth. You are confused, Lorenzo said, and the moment the words left him, I knew he had lost more than the argument. Every witness heard it. Every witness understood it. A man only called a woman confused when he had run out of better chains. Monica smiled at him with enough sweetness to make the air dangerous. Am I? Lorenzo's jaw tightened. You have been under pressure. Yes, from you. A Bellari cousin looked down. The Valles woman stiffened. Monica turned slightly, enough to let the witnesses see her face clearly. Let us be honest. Since you brought an audience and tragic flowers, you did not come here to ask me what I wanted. You came here to perform concern loudly enough that refusing you would make me look damaged. Lorenzo's face darkened. That is unfair. No, she said. What is unfair is using a woman's public humiliation as your chance to audition for sainthood. His fingers crushed the bouquet tighter. I watched the petals bend. I wanted them red. I did not move. Monica had told me not to step in front of her, so I stood behind her and learned a kind of restraint I had never been forced to practice. Lorenzo looked past her to me. You are letting her speak like this? Monica laughed. The sound was light, almost delighted. I saw the witnesses react to it. She had taken the tone of the entire confrontation and changed it from rescue to ridicule. Lorenzo, she said, that question is exactly why this is going so badly for you. His mouth opened. She kept going. I am not a misplaced heirloom. I am not a damaged reputation waiting for a man to polish it. I am not your petition, your performance, your future wife, or your proof that you know how to stand bravely near a gate with flowers. Someone made the mistake of laughing, then someone else. Not loud. Enough. The rescue had died. Lorenzo felt it. I saw the panic surface through the polish. You will regret this, he said. Monica tilted her head. Possibly, but not because I refused you. The silence afterward was exquisite. I looked at the witnesses one by one. They understood. If they repeated Lorenzo's version now, they would be mocked. If they called Monica compromised, they would have to explain why the compromised woman had looked sharper, calmer, and more in control than the man claiming to save her. Seraphine's carefully staged room had been brought outside and gutted on my driveway. By Monica, not by me. That mattered, more than I wanted it to. Lorenzo threw the flowers onto the gravel, a childish act from a man who had arrived pretending to be noble. Monica looked down at them. There, much better. They were suffering. That broke the last of his dignity. He turned toward his cars, witnesses scrambling after him with the awkward haste of people who wanted to flee without appearing to flee. I waited until his convoy moved through the gates before I turned to Monica. She was smiling, still. But I had learned her better now. The smile was armor with cracked straps. You won, I said. She did not look at me. No, Carlos. I survived publicly. Winning would have included breakfast and legal consequences for the flowers. Before I could answer, Mateo came down the steps fast. Too fast. My body went cold before he reached us. Why? I asked. His eyes flicked to Monica. Her smile vanished. Say it, she said. Mateo's voice was controlled. Your off-site archive was hit during the confrontation. The color left Monica's face. Not all of it. Enough. My hand closed slowly at my side. Rinaldi? We found their marker at the service entrance. No bodies. 2 guards drugged alive. Several cabinets opened. Monica's breath changed. Barely. But I heard it. The Marlowe file, I said. Mateo nodded. They were looking for it. Monica turned away from the driveway, eyes fixed on nothing. For the first time all morning, she looked truly wounded. Not because of Lorenzo, not because of Seraphine, because something she had protected had been touched. I stepped toward her. Monica. She held up one hand. Not now. I stopped. That was new too. Obeying a raised hand from a woman who owned no army and somehow commanded more of me than men with guns. She inhaled once, then faced Mateo. What else did they take? We do not know yet. My private files are not trophies. Her voice had gone low, hard. They are protection. I looked at her. She must have felt the question because she turned those bright, furious eyes on me. Do you understand now? She said. The women everyone calls mistakes. The mistresses men blame when marriages rot. The staff accused when sons steal. The illegitimate children erased because inheritance makes cowards cruel. Those files keep powerful men from rewriting every ugly thing they have done. The driveway seemed to disappear behind her. There she was, not the darling of the underworld, not the polished woman in silk, the keeper of quiet evidence, the woman behind every saved reputation who had also been saving people no one powerful wanted saved. You used scandal to protect them, I said. I used truth, she snapped. Scandal is what men call truth when it embarrasses them. That line went through me clean. I had thought her dangerous because she could humiliate a room. I had been wrong. She was dangerous because she remembered the people everyone else was willing to spend. Mateo's phone rang. He answered, listened, his face hardened. Monica saw it first. No, she said, just that. One word, thin as wire. Mateo lowered the phone. Gia is missing. The world narrowed. Monica did not move. For 3 heartbeats she became utterly still. Then all the humor left her face. Where? Her apartment was entered. No sign of forced struggle. A message was left. My voice went flat. Read it. Mateo looked at Monica. She did not blink. Read it, he swallowed. Bring Monica and the Marlowe file, or Gia becomes the next woman no one believes. Something inside Monica broke. Not loudly, not visibly, but I saw the damage because I was watching too closely. Gia was not just staff. I knew it before Monica said a word. She is alive, I said. Monica looked at me then. The fury in her eyes was terrible. She had better be. I will send men. No. The answer came instantly. Monica. No, Carlos. They asked for me. They know Gia matters. They know I will come. That is why it is a trap. Congratulations. The beast of the underworld recognizes bait. This can kill you. Then we should make it regret inviting me. I stared at her. There was fear beneath the line. Real fear. She had finally stopped performing for everyone else, but not because she trusted us with softness, because Gia had been taken, and Monica Abberdeen did not abandon people who had loved her without an audience. You are not going alone, I said. She turned toward the house, already moving. I was not asking. I followed, the gravel crunching under my shoes, violence settling cold and clear in my blood. Behind us, Lorenzo's crushed roses lay scattered across my driveway. In front of us, Monica walked toward war barefoot in silk and rage, and for the first time since I had taken her, I understood exactly what kind of woman the underworld had been worshipping. Not delicate, not darling, devoted.
Chapter 9. Gia had once remembered my headache when an entire ballroom forgot I had a body. That was the thought that nearly broke me. Not the Rinaldis. Not the threat. Not the fact that men who smelled like inherited rot had reached through the city and taken the one person who still asked whether I had eaten before asking me to save anyone else. Gia. Gia, who kept crackers in her purse because I forgot meals during gala season. Gia, who knew which rich wives cried in powder rooms and which husbands deserved to trip over their own arrogance. Gia, who once told a drunk heir that if he touched my waist again, she would introduce his hand to a serving fork. Gia, who had no army, no family name that made men hesitate, no beast of the underworld standing between her and danger. Only me. So yes, I was going. I crossed Carlos's foyer barefoot in ivory silk, fury carrying me faster than fear could follow. Men moved out of my path because apparently even armed guards recognized when a woman had reached the end of her tolerance for masculine nonsense. Carlos caught up before I reached the main doors. He stepped in front of me, broad shoulders blocking the exit, face carved into that terrible calm men wore when they believed they were about to be reasonable while ruining everything. No. I stopped so fast my breath almost caught. Then I smiled. It was not a kind smile. Carlos, if one more man says that word to me today, I am going to start charging by the syllable. You are not walking into a Rinaldi trap. Excellent. Then drive me. His jaw tightened. Monica. There it is, my name as a legal restriction. They asked for you because they know you will come. Yes. They know Gia matters. Yes, they will use that against you. Yes, Carlos. The criminals have discovered emotional leverage. Alert the furniture. His eyes darkened. Yes, this is not funny. No, I snapped, and the word came out too sharp, too naked. It is not. Gia is in their hands because she helped me protect women your world would rather misplace. The guards went still. Carlos did not. That was worse. His stillness was not shock. It was attention. I hated that it made me want to speak. So I did because apparently terror had destroyed the sensible part of my brain. She noticed when I stopped eating, I said. Do you understand that? In rooms full of people who adored me, Gia noticed when I had not eaten since morning. She brought me coffee before meetings where old men smiled while asking me to bury their sons' mistakes. She walked me to my car when events ran late because she said women should not have to be brave alone in parking lots. My throat tightened. I wanted to make a joke. Nothing came. Carlos's face shifted. Barely. But I saw it. I have spent years being useful to people who would mourn me beautifully and replace me efficiently, I said. Gia cared when I was not useful. So if you think I am standing here while the Rinaldis hurt her because you have a better plan that keeps my dress clean, you are about to be disappointed in several languages. Carlos stared at me. Then he did the one thing I did not expect. He moved aside, not completely. Enough. The hallway seemed to tilt. You are not going alone, he said. I blinked once. Was that compromise? Should I call someone? Is there a priest in the house? No. Doctor? No. Witnesses, then. This feels historic. His mouth almost moved. You are terrified, obviously. He looked at me longer. I crossed my arms. Do not look so moved. I am still planning to be difficult. I am counting on it. That stopped me. Not because it was tender, because it was respect. Strange, inconvenient, dangerous respect. Carlos turned to Mateo, who had appeared at the edge of the foyer with a tablet and the expression of a man trying not to interrupt an emotional disaster armed with sarcasm. Location? Carlos asked. Old Vein Warehouse, South Docks. Rinaldi controlled until last year, officially abandoned. I laughed once. Of course. Nothing says criminal intelligence like an abandoned warehouse. Do they receive a discount for predictability? Mateo glanced at me. It has 3 main entrances, 2 loading bays, upper catwalks, and water access behind it. Carlos looked back at me. Rinaldi weaknesses. I should not have liked how quickly he asked me. Not ordered. Asked, but I did. They are vain, I said, both of them. Nico worse, Dante louder. They think being born into money makes them clever. It does not. It makes them expensive and poorly supervised. Mateo's lips twitched. Nico likes to feel like the mind behind things, I continued. Even when the plan is stupid enough to require medical attention. Dante likes an audience. If they have Gia, they will want me afraid in front of her. They will want to make me admit I cannot protect anyone. Carlos's voice went cold. They will not touch you. Carlos, his eyes found mine. This works only if they think I am scared enough to be sloppy, I said, and angry enough to be predictable. You are both. Thank you for your support. You are not sloppy. That landed softly, too softly. I turned away and focused on the table where Mateo had spread the rough warehouse layout. They will expect you to storm in like a thundercloud with cheekbones. Carlos stared at me. What? I asked. It is a fair description. Mateo coughed into his fist. I tapped the map. So we give them what they expect from me, not from you. I go invisible, upset, but not broken. I let them talk. They will talk because men like that cannot resist hearing themselves become villains. Carlos leaned beside me, close enough that his sleeve brushed mine. This time, neither of us moved away. And while they talk, he asked, your men get Gia out. They will use you as leverage. Yes, that is why I need them irritated. I looked at him. Not dead before they speak, not yet. His gaze held mine. You were asking me or asking for restraint again. I am. It seems to build character. I have enough character. You have cheekbones and weapons. Different category. Mateo made the mistake of looking amused. Carlos did not look away from me. If you restraint ends. If they threaten Gia, mine does. A silence passed between us then. Not soft, not romantic, something better. Agreement. Dangerous, furious, clean. Carlos looked at Mateo. 2 teams, one through the water entrance, one on the upper catwalk. No movement until Monica confirms Gia's position. Mateo nodded. And you? Carlos's eyes stayed on me. With her. No, I said immediately. His expression did not change. Yes, they need to believe I came desperate. They will. Carlos, you standing beside me does not exactly whisper helpless. I can stand in shadow. I opened my mouth. Closed it. That image should not have done anything to me. It did. Fine, I said, but if you brood too loudly, I will know. I will be silent. That has never stopped you from being dramatic. For one fragile second, his mouth almost became a smile. Then Mateo's phone rang. He answered, listened, and handed it to me without speaking. My skin went cold before I lifted it. A video opened. Gia sat tied to a metal chair under warehouse lights, hair messy, lips split, eyes furious instead of broken. Relief hit so hard it nearly buckled my knees. Then Gia looked directly into the camera. Monica, she said, voice shaking but clear, do not you dare come in here without making them regret it. The video cut. For 1 second I could not breathe. Then I handed the phone back. Carlos stepped closer, but he did not touch me. I loved him a little for that. No, I did not. That was panic talking. Probably. Ready? He asked. I lifted my chin. No, I said. But Gia hates disappointing villains, and frankly, so do I. An hour later, I stepped out of Carlos's car at the South Docks, the warehouse rising ahead of me like a mistake waiting to be corrected. The night smelled like salt, rust, and bad decisions. Carlos moved somewhere behind me, swallowed by shadow. I walked toward the open door alone, and for the first time since the gala, I was not the woman everyone worshipped. I was the woman coming to collect what powerful men had been foolish enough to touch. The warehouse door screamed when I pushed it open, which felt unnecessary. Honestly, even the building was dramatic. Rusty lights swung from metal beams overhead. The floor smelled like salt, oil, old water, and men who believed kidnapping women made them interesting. Somewhere above me, metal creaked. Somewhere behind me, Carlos moved in shadow so quietly I almost convinced myself he was not there. Almost. Then I saw Gia. She was tied to a chair beneath a hanging lamp, lips split, hair falling over one eye, spine still straight because Gia had always been more dangerous than people realized. Relief hit me so hard my knees nearly forgot their responsibilities. Monica, she snapped. You absolute idiot. I smiled because if I cried, Nico and Dante Rinaldi would have the pleasure of seeing it, and I had standards. Gia, I said, you look terrible. You came to a warehouse in silk. It was this or Carlos's curtains, and frankly, they looked expensive, but emotionally unavailable. Gia's mouth twitched. Good. Still alive. Still Gia. Slow clapping came from the left. Nico Rinaldi stepped out between 2 stacks of crates, blonde, pretty, and rotten in the way fruit became when no one dared throw it away. His twin Dante lounged near Gia's chair with a knife in one hand and too much confidence in the other. Monica Abberdeen, Nico said. The darling herself. I sighed. If one more man calls me darling tonight, I may start collecting teeth. Dante laughed. Still talking. Still disappointing your family, I see. His smile dropped. Excellent. Men like Dante were easy. Scratch the polish and the spoiled child screamed underneath. Nico lifted a hand. The file. I looked around. No greeting? No refreshments? No little criminal speech about how clever you are? Standards have collapsed. We know you brought Ravolenti. Dante said. Of course I did. I was kidnapped by him first. There is a queue. Nico's eyes narrowed. Where is he? Probably somewhere judging your security. He has hobbies. Dante moved closer to Gia. My heartbeat slammed once, hard enough to hurt. I kept my smile. That was the trick. Smile until men forgot to check where the knife was pointed. You want the Marlowe file, I said. Fine. But I need to know what exactly you think you are buying with it. Silence? Reputation? Or the ability to blame another woman the next time one of you misplaces a family heirloom in a drunk friend's pocket? Nico's face tightened. Dante cursed. There, Gia's eyes flicked once toward the upper catwalk. She had heard movement too. Carlos's men. Hold, I begged silently. Hold until I get Gia safe. Nico stepped closer. Clara Marlowe should have kept her mouth shut. She did, I said. That was the problem. You blamed a woman who could not afford to defend herself. She was staff. And there it is, I said softly. The family motto. Dante grabbed Gia's shoulder. I stopped breathing. Gia did not make a sound. Nico smiled. Give us the file, Monica, or we make Gia what Clara almost became. A liar no one believes. The upper lights cut out. 1 second of darkness. Then chaos moved. Carlos's men dropped from the catwalk like shadows given orders. Dante's hand ripped away from Gia as someone slammed him into the concrete. Nico reached for a gun and froze when Carlos stepped from the dark behind him, weapon pressed calmly to the back of his head. Bad choice, Carlos said. I should not have found that voice reassuring. I did. I ran to Gia. My fingers shook as I worked at the ropes. I swear, if you scold me while I rescue you, I am leaving you with the furniture. Gia sucked in a breath when the knot loosened. You brought the beast. He insisted, very clingy. Carlos glanced at me from across the warehouse. Even in the middle of a rescue, the man heard everything. Gia fell into me the second she was free. I held her too tightly. She held me tighter. You came, she whispered, always. Behind us, Nico was forced to his knees. Dante spat blood and tried to curse until Matteo stepped on his wrist and made him reconsider language. Carlos looked at them with terrifying calm. Who paid for the Ravolenti leak? Nico laughed through his fear. You think we started that? My body went cold. Carlos's eyes sharpened. Nico smiled, ugly and shaking. We only used the distraction. Ask your pretty social queen who benefits when every man is too busy watching Monica burn. Seraphine. Lorenzo. Maybe both. Maybe worse. Carlos looked at me. I looked back. The night had not ended. Not yet. By dawn, the Rinaldis were in Ravolenti custody. Gia was wrapped in a blanket in Carlos's car, and 3 private channels had already received Carlos's official statement. Not a threat carved into a tomb this time. A truth with witnesses. The rescue succeeded because of Monica Abberdeen. Her strategy, her courage, her protection of women this city forgot. I read the statement twice. Then I looked at Carlos across his office. You credited me. Yes. No man does that. His face went still. Then you have known weak men. I wanted to joke. Nothing came quickly enough, so I asked the thing that had been waiting between us since the gala. What happens now? Carlos opened the drawer of his desk and placed my phone, my keys, and a folded card in front of me. My driver can take you anywhere. The room tilted. You are letting me leave? Yes. Because the investigation is over? No. Because I am no longer useful? His eyes hardened. Do not insult me. Then why? He came around the desk, stopping far enough away that the space still belonged to me. Because I want you to stay, he said, and I will not make you. That ruined every clever defense I had left. Carlos Ravolenti, the beast of the underworld, stood in front of me with open hands and a locked jaw, offering the one thing he had taken first. Choice. My throat tightened. Carlos, if you walk out, my men will protect you from a distance until this is finished. You will not see them unless danger comes close. How romantic. Invisible kidnappers. His mouth almost moved. Bodyguards. Still needs work. I know. I stepped closer. He did not move. I placed one hand against his chest, right over the steady beat I had felt once before. You are not taking this time, I whispered. No, you are not deciding for me. No, you are not making my fear into permission. His voice roughened. Never again. That was the sentence that broke me. I rose onto my toes and kissed him. Carlos went perfectly still for one breath, as if restraint had become physical pain. Then his hand settled at my waist, gentle first, asking without words. I answered by moving closer. The kiss changed. Slow, deep, devastating. Not possession, not punishment, not proof for anyone watching. Choice. His mouth was warm, controlled until it was not, until the careful beast I had mocked and fought and feared became a man, holding me like I was allowed to be wanted without being used. He murmured my name against my lips, not like a warrant, like a confession. I should have made a joke. Instead, I kissed him again. Later, he carried none of the arrogance I expected, only care. Water pressed into my hand, a blanket around my shoulders, his fingers brushing my hair back from my face with aching restraint. He asked if I was all right twice, and when I mocked him for repetition, he looked so grimly relieved I nearly laughed into his chest. Nearly. I sat beside him on the edge of his bed, wrapped in warmth and shock and a tenderness I had no idea where to place. Then Mateo called. Carlos answered, listened, and his face went cold. "What?" I asked. He lowered the phone. "Seraphine is claiming you and I staged the Rinaldi threat to redeem ourselves." For 1 second, I stared. Then I smiled. Carlos's eyes narrowed. "Why are you smiling?" Because now she was desperate. Because desperate women with perfect smiles made mistakes. Because tomorrow the room would finally belong to me. Because, I said softly, Seraphine just became sloppy.
Chapter 10. By noon, Seraphine Valles had decided to call Monica Abberdeen a liar in a room full of witnesses, which proved desperation made even elegant women stupid. The invitation arrived through 3 private channels, wrapped in silk language and poisoned restraint. A gathering for reputation, a discussion of truth, a necessary conversation regarding dangerous manipulations within the underworld. Seraphine had not named Monica. She did not need to. Every person invited understood who the knife was for. Monica sat across from me at my breakfast table, with one leg crossed beneath the borrowed silk robe she had stolen from my housekeeper's emergency wardrobe, reading the invitation on Mateo's tablet while eating toast with the calm of a woman reviewing weather. Gia sat beside her, bruised but upright, wrapped in one of my coats, because Monica had insisted she looked cold, and Gia had insisted she was not, and the argument had somehow ended with both women blaming me. "This is dramatic," Monica said. Gia leaned over. "Even for Seraphine." Monica nodded. "The woman does enjoy a chandelier and a false moral concern." I watched her closely. After last night, I had expected exhaustion, trembling, delayed fear. Instead, Monica looked bright-eyed and dangerous, her hair loose around her shoulders, one bruise faint near her wrist from the warehouse rope she had yanked loose while freeing Gia. She held herself like nothing had touched her. That was the lie. I knew it now. Her performance was not vanity, it was survival. "I can end this quietly," I said. Monica did not look up. "No." Gia smiled into her coffee. I ignored her. Seraphine's accounts, her couriers, her family's private channels. "Give me 6 hours. Carlos." The way Monica said my name made Gia suddenly fascinated by the marmalade. I leaned back. "She is accusing you of staging your own danger." "Yes." "She is trying to turn your rescue into theater." "Yes." "She is using my name to make you look compromised." Again, "Yes." Monica finally looked up, eyes calm and merciless. "And she is doing it publicly, so she can lose publicly." Gia lifted her cup. "I support this plan." "You were kidnapped yesterday," I told her. Gia shrugged. "I contain multitudes." Monica pointed at her. "See? Excellent recovery." I stared at both of them. Women were more terrifying than armies. Mateo cleared his throat from the doorway. "The event is at the Valles Conservatory tonight. Bellari, Savelli, Don Vittorio, 2 council witnesses, Lorenzo Varick, and 3 neutral houses confirmed." Monica's mouth curved. "Lorenzo is attending?" "Yes," Mateo said, likely hoping Seraphine gives him back some dignity. Poor man. Borrowed dignity rarely fits. Gia laughed once, then winced. Monica instantly reached for her hand. Small gesture, fast, unperformed. My chest tightened before I could stop it. That was what the city had missed while worshipping her. They saw the silk and the smile. They did not see how quickly she reached for wounded people when no one important was watching. I saw it. I would never unsee it. Monica stood. "I need a dress." I rose too. "You have one." She looked down at the robe. "Carlos, if I destroy Seraphine in sleepwear, it will look like bullying." Gia nodded solemnly. "True." Monica turned toward me. "Also, you are not walking in front of me tonight." I know. That stopped her for half a breath. Good. Let her hear that I had learned something. "I walk beside you," I said, "unless danger reaches first." Her expression shifted, something tender trying and failing to hide behind suspicion. Danger does seem fond of punctuality. I am fonder. The words left before I dressed them in restraint. Gia made a sound into her cup. Monica's eyes warmed despite herself. Careful, Carlos. That was almost charming. It will not happen again. Tragic. I had begun documenting evidence. By evening, Monica entered the West Hall in black silk, not mourning, not surrender, power. The gown was simple, sharp, and fitted like a verdict. Her hair was pinned low. Her throat was bare. No diamonds, no glittering armor, nothing Seraphine could pretend was desperation for attention. She looked like the last thing a rumor saw before it died. I forgot how to move for 1 second. Monica noticed. If you stare like that, she said, I will assume the dress is doing its job. The dress is irrelevant. Her brows lifted. That is very rude to the dress. You are the weapon. The humor faded from her face, only for a moment, but I saw the compliment reach the place my other words had not. Then she recovered, smoothing one hand down the front of her gown. Well, try not to look too proud. Seraphine will think you helped. I did not. No, she said softly. You let me. There was the difference. She knew it. So did I. The Valet Conservatory was built for beautiful betrayals. Glass ceiling, white orchids, marble statues, gold chairs. Every candle placed to flatter skin and hide rot. Seraphine had chosen her battlefield well. The room quieted when Monica entered beside me. Beside, not behind, not under my hand, not tucked into my shadow. I felt every eye register the difference. Seraphine stood near the center of the room in emerald satin, elegant enough to make Venom look civilized. Lorenzo stood near the left archway, face tight with hope and humiliation. Don Vittorio watched from a high-backed chair, old eyes sharper than most men's knives. Seraphine smiled. Monica, she said, how brave of you to come. Monica smiled back. Seraphine, how predictable of you to host. A murmur moved through the room. Seraphine's mouth tightened, then softened again. We are all here because the underworld deserves clarity. No, Monica said pleasantly. You are here because you invited people to watch you pretend concern is evidence. The first cut landed. Not fatal. Not yet. Seraphine folded her hands. I understand you are defensive. And I understand you are committed. We all bring something. Lorenzo shifted, but he did not speak yet. Cowardice had finally taught him timing. Seraphine turned slightly, allowing the room to see the shine in her eyes. No woman should be shamed for surviving danger. But when danger is arranged, when threats conveniently appear, when a man's reputation is repaired by rescuing the very woman he compromised, questions must be asked. Her gaze moved to me, then back to Monica. She is accusing you of staging the Rinaldis. I said quietly. Monica did not look at me. I know. My hands remained at my sides. That cost more than violence would have. Monica stepped forward. The room leaned with her. Ask your question, Seraphine. Seraphine's smile widened, believing she had permission. That was her mistake. Did Carlos Ravolenti know the Rinaldis would move against you before the warehouse? Seraphine asked. No. Did you benefit from the rescue? Monica tilted her head. Gia lived, so yes. Several women looked down. Good. Seraphine's eyes hardened. Did the rescue not repair your image after your scandalous stay inside Ravolenti house? My image survived worse than your imagination. A few quiet laughs. Seraphine's fingers tightened. And the leaked Ravolenti information? Your name attached to it? Are we to believe every disaster around you is coincidence? Monica smiled. Slowly. Seraphine, she said, that is the smartest thing you have said tonight. The room stilled. Seraphine blinked once. Monica continued, voice soft enough to draw everyone closer. Because no, it was not coincidence. The air changed. Every man and woman in that conservatory sharpened. Lorenzo's face went pale. Seraphine's smile froze. And Monica Abberdeen, the woman everyone had worshipped because they thought she made disasters disappear, looked directly at the woman trying to ruin her and said, someone in this room knew pieces of the Ravolenti leak before Carlos ever reached the gala. The room changed the moment Monica said it. Not loudly, not dramatically. The shift was worse than that. It was quiet, intelligent, predatory. Every person in the Valles Conservatory understood that Monica Abberdeen had stopped defending herself and started hunting. Seraphine's smile held for one breath too long. Then it began to crack at the edges. "That is a serious accusation," Seraphine said softly. Monica looked almost amused. "No, that was a serious warning. The accusation is coming." A murmur moved through the room. Lorenzo shifted near the archway, face pale beneath his polished confidence. I watched his hand flex once at his side. He knew, maybe not all of it, enough. Monica turned slightly, addressing the room instead of Seraphine alone. Pieces of the Ravolenti leak moved through private channels before Carlos ever entered the Black Orchid Gala. Not the full file, not enough for anyone to understand the whole crime, just enough for certain people to prepare concern, outrage, and opportunity. Her gaze slid to Lorenzo. He swallowed. "Some men prepared rescue speeches," she said. A few eyes moved toward him. Lorenzo stiffened. "I was worried for you." Monica smiled. "Yes, you were worried very quickly, almost professionally." A soft laugh cut through the room before the person could hide it. Lorenzo flushed. Seraphine stepped in, voice colder now. "This is cruel, Monica. Lorenzo tried to protect you." "No," Monica said. "Lorenzo tried to acquire me while the room still smelled like scandal." His mouth opened. She lifted one finger. He closed it. I almost smiled. Almost. Monica looked back to Seraphine. "But Lorenzo was not clever enough to build this alone." Seraphine's eyes hardened. "Be careful." There it was. The real woman beneath the silk. Not concerned, not wounded, threatened. Monica's smile softened. "Darling, I have been careful for years. It was exhausting." Then she turned to Gia. Gia stepped forward from near the side entrance, bruised but steady, a slim folder in her hands. Seraphine's face lost another shade of color. "Good." Gia handed Monica the folder. Monica did not open it immediately. She let the room look at it first. The silence became unbearable. Then Monica said, "The courier who carried the Ravolenti leak was cleared through a forged Abberdeen credential. Everyone knows that part." Seraphine lifted her chin, which still raises questions. "It does." Monica opened the folder. "Such is why the payment for that courier passed through a charity account controlled by the Valles Foundation's private events committee." The room erupted, not with shouting, with breath, sharp, stunned, collective breath. Seraphine laughed once. "That is absurd." Gia's voice cut in, cool and steady. "The account was routed through 2 shells. We found the second after the Rinaldis hit the archive. They were sloppy with what they searched for." Monica glanced at her. "Gia enjoys revenge with paperwork." Gia's mouth twitched. "It is my love language." I heard Matteo exhale behind me. Seraphine looked at Gia as though she wanted her erased from the floor. I moved one step, not in front of Monica, beside her. Seraphine noticed. So did the room. Monica continued, "The payment did not prove motive. Not alone. It could have been dismissed as an account abused by someone beneath Seraphine." Seraphine seized on it. "Exactly. You have no proof I authorized anything." "No," Monica said. "I have better. You had the language before the scandal broke." Seraphine went still. Monica removed a smaller page from the folder. "Your draft statement, prepared before Carlos entered the gala. Poor Monica, drawn to dangerous rooms. One hopes charm has not made her careless." A deadly silence fell. Monica looked up. "You said nearly the same thing at the Bellari luncheon." Don Vittorio leaned forward, old eyes narrowed. "How did you obtain this?" Gia answered, "From a Valles assistant who was tired of being asked to lie elegantly." Seraphine's face twisted. "That girl stole from me." Monica smiled. "No, Seraphine. She returned something ugly to its proper owner." The room turned against her then. I saw it happen, not all at once. One woman looked away from Seraphine, then one man, then another. Public favor was a living animal. Monica knew how to feed it, soothe it, direct it, and tonight she had turned it loose. Seraphine's eyes flashed. "You think you are better than me?" "No," Monica said. "I think I was useful to people, and you hated that they trusted me with their messes instead of admiring you for your dress." The cut was perfect because it was plain. Seraphine's composure finally broke. "You were nothing," she snapped. "A pretty fixer. A girl everyone summoned when their wives cried and their sons misbehaved. They worshipped you because you served them." Monica did not flinch. My hands curled slowly. I wanted to ruin Seraphine for that. But Monica had not asked me to, so I stayed beside her, and I let her choose the blade. "Yes," Monica said quietly. "I served. I protected wives who had no power, staff who had no names, mistresses blamed for men's choices, daughters hidden because inheritance made cowards of fathers. I made ugly things disappear when disappearing them protected the powerless. Her voice sharpened. You made ugly things disappear to protect yourself. Seraphine's mouth trembled. Then Lorenzo made his final mistake. She is twisting this, he said desperately. Monica is emotional. She has been compromised by Ravolenti. I looked at him. He froze. Monica did not even turn fully. Lorenzo, you brought flowers to a kidnapping and called it strategy. Sit down emotionally. A laugh broke out. Then another. Lorenzo's face collapsed into humiliation. Don Vittorio raised one hand and the room quieted. Enough, he said. His gaze moved from Seraphine to Lorenzo. The evidence will be reviewed formally. Until then, Seraphine Valles is removed from all reputation councils, private women's committees, and event authority. Lorenzo Varick's protector petition is denied and publicly struck from record. Seraphine made a wounded sound. Lorenzo looked as if someone had unplugged him. Monica exhaled once. Small, almost invisible, but I saw the tremor beneath it. I stepped closer. Monica. She looked at me. The room was still watching, always watching. So I did the one thing none of them expected. I went down on one knee. The entire conservatory stopped breathing. Monica's eyes widened. Carlos, she whispered, alarmed. What are you doing? I took her hand carefully, loosely enough that she could pull away. I took choice from you once, I said, loud enough for every coward in the room to hear. Never again. Her lips parted. I looked up at her, the woman I had taken because I thought control would solve everything, the woman who had turned my house upside down, corrected my security, insulted my curtains, saved my reputation, and taught me that devotion without freedom was only a prettier cage. You owe me nothing, I said, not gratitude, not forgiveness, not your hand, not your future. If you walk out of this room without me, I will protect your name until my last breath and never call it a debt. Her eyes shone, not tears, not yet, something more dangerous, hope. And if I stay, she asked softly. My throat tightened. Then I spend the rest of my life earning the woman I was arrogant enough to take and fortunate enough to love. The word landed between us. Love. No poetry. No performance. No ownership dressed as romance. Just truth placed in her hands. Monica looked around the room, at every person who had watched her be used, adored, doubted, threatened, and finally seen. Then she looked back at me. Her smile trembled. You understand I will still criticize your house. Yes. Your furniture remains emotionally unwell. I will seek help for it. And if you ever try to make decisions for me again, I will deserve what happens. That is the first, truly intelligent thing you have said. Then Monica Abberdeen laughed. Not the polished laugh of the darling everyone worshipped. Not the sharp little laugh she used to cut men down. A real laugh. Soft. Broken. Bright. She tugged once on my hand. I stood, and she chose me in front of everyone. Her kiss was not long. It did not need to be. It was a public answer, a private promise, and the end of every man in that room believing Monica Abberdeen could be assigned. When she pulled back, she smiled up at me. Take me home, Carlos. My chest tightened. Your apartment? She tilted her head. Our home, temporarily, until we fix the curtains. I almost smiled. This time, I let it happen. The room gasped as if my face had committed treason. Monica's eyes lit. Oh, she said. That was worth everything. I leaned closer, my voice low enough for only her. Do not get used to it. Too late. Behind us, Seraphine Valles stood ruined among her orchids. Lorenzo stared at the floor. The elders whispered. The underworld rearranged itself around a woman it had mistaken for decoration, and Monica walked out beside me. Not behind. Not taken. Not rescued. Chosen.
Epilogue. The first thing I changed in Carlos Ravolenti's house was the curtains. Not the security system. Not the art. Not the terrifying ancestral portraits of dead Ravolenti men who looked like they had invented tax evasion and emotional repression at the same dinner table. The curtains. Because I was convinced no woman could build a healthy future in a house where every window looked like it had been dressed for a funeral conducted by bankers. Carlos stood in the grand salon with his arms crossed, watching 3 decorators, 2 electricians, 1 terrified antique specialist, and Gia attempt to move a black marble side table that looked heavy enough to have buried a secret. His expression was grave, not annoyed. Grave, as if the house itself were undergoing surgery. Monica, he said. I turned from the fabric samples spread across the sofa. Carlos, you are replacing every curtain? Yes. Every curtain in the west wing. Yes, and the north wing. Also yes, and the dining room. That room has been begging for help since before I was kidnapped. Gia, sitting cross-legged on the floor with a clipboard, did not look up. The dining room has hostile widow energy. Carlos looked at her. Gia looked at him. What? She asked. You said I could be honest. I regret that. No, you don't, I said. You only regret how efficiently she accepted. Gia pointed her pen at me. Thank you. Carlos's gaze returned to the fabric samples. Why are there 12 shades of cream? Because men like you call everything white and then wonder why women develop headaches. His mouth almost moved. Almost. Several months ago, that almost smile would have felt like a rare weather event. Now I saw it at least 3 times a week, usually when I insulted his furniture, his emotional habits, or the way he stood in doorways like a threat waiting for better lighting. Progress. The beast of the underworld was evolving, slowly, suspiciously, but beautifully. Ravolenti House had changed, too, not softened completely. It was still black stone, iron gates, armed guards, and reinforced glass, because Carlos believed optimism was something other people did before being robbed. But now the foyer held flowers that were not funeral white. The West Salon had warm rugs, gold lamps, and artwork made by living artists who had clearly experienced sunlight. The dining room no longer looked like 12 enemies were supposed to gather there and sign a treaty in blood, and the protected wing, our wing, had color. Actual color. Carlos had objected once, only once. Then I reminded him that a man who had publicly knelt in front of the underworld could survive a blue velvet sofa. He had said, very seriously, the sofa is aggressive. I had said, so are you. The sofa stayed. Today, Ravolenti House was full of noise. Laughter from the women in the garden, low voices from Carlos's men in the corridor. Gia arguing with Mateo over whether the new library ladder was beautiful or a lawsuit. And somewhere outside, the city continuing to whisper about the impossible thing that had happened after Seraphine Valle's fall. Monica Abberdeen had not become the beast's possession. She had become his equal. Seraphine's empire of reputation had collapsed in layers after the evidence surfaced. Assistants spoke, couriers confessed, charity accounts were reviewed. Her invitations thinned first, then vanished. The women's committees she had used as polite knives removed her name from every door she had once guarded like a throne. Lorenzo Varick had left the city for rest, which was what men called exile when they still owned nice luggage. The Rinaldis remained locked away in a place where their money could no longer purchase silence. And Gia now ran the Abberdeen Foundation for Quiet Justice, which Carlos had funded without asking permission, and then claimed he was only correcting inefficient social structures. Gia called it guilt with paperwork. I called it growth. Carlos called it none of my business. He was wrong. Naturally. Monica. I glanced up again. Carlos had moved closer. In the afternoon light, with the house half redone around him, he looked almost unreal. Black shirt, sleeves rolled, jaw shadowed, eyes fixed on me with that devastating stillness that had once terrified entire rooms and now mostly made me want to kiss him until he forgot how to brood. Almost. I had errands. What? He held out a small velvet box. The room went silent. Not dramatically, catastrophically. Gia's pen stopped moving. The decorator holding the cream velvet sample froze like the sample had become evidence. Even the antiques specialist stopped breathing, which I appreciated because he had been making emotional noises over the marble table for 10 minutes. I stared at the box, then at Carlos. Is that what I think it is? Yes? Here? Yes. In front of the curtain people? Carlos looked around, as if noticing the audience for the first time, then back at me. I wanted witnesses. Gia whispered, "Oh, I am staying for this." I pointed at her without looking away from Carlos. "You are absolutely staying for this." Carlos stepped closer. He did not kneel yet. He had learned me too well for that. He opened the box first. Inside sat a ring unlike anything I would have expected from him. Not enormous. Not vulgar. Not a stone meant to announce ownership from across a ballroom. A deep blue sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds set in old gold, elegant, sharp, luminous, a ring that looked less like possession and more like promise. My throat tightened. I hated that he kept doing this to me, existing with emotional accuracy. It was very inconvenient. This belonged to no dead Ravolenti woman, he said. I blinked, then laughed, because of course he had thought to clarify that. That is such a romantic opening. I had it made. Oh, that was worse. That was much worse. He took the ring from the box, but did not reach for my hand. He only held it between us, waiting. Choice. Always choice now. Monica Abberdeen, he said, voice low, steady, and serious enough to quiet every room inside me. I do not want a wife who stands behind me. I do not want a woman who makes my house quieter, easier, or obedient. Good, I whispered, because my voice had apparently abandoned me. I want you exactly as you are. Difficult, brilliant, dangerous, devoted to everyone except your own rest, cruel to bad furniture, merciless to vain men, too generous with wounded people, too stubborn when frightened, too brave when no one deserves it. Gia sniffed loudly. I did not look at her, because I would lose the fragile war against my own eyes. Carlos's gaze held mine. I took you once because I believed control would solve fear. You taught me love without freedom is only a better decorated cage. His mouth softened barely. So I am asking, not claiming, not taking, not deciding for you. He held the ring slightly higher. Marry me, choose me, let me spend my life making sure you never have to be worshipped when you deserve to be loved. The room blurred, just slightly, annoying, deeply rude. I stared at him for one long second. Then I said, you understand I will continue redecorating. Yes, the portraits are next. His jaw tightened. I smiled through the ache in my throat. Carlos. He closed his eyes for half a breath. How many portraits? All of them look judgmental. They are ancestors. They can judge from storage. Gia made a strangled sound that was either laughter or joy. Carlos opened his eyes. I accept. And you will never use the phrase my wife like a leash. No, you may use it like a warning. That was my hope. My smile broke wide. Yes, I whispered. Then louder, because I wanted the house to hear me. Yes, Carlos Ravolenti, I will marry you. For a second, he did not move. Then he slid the ring onto my finger with hands so careful it almost undid me. The room erupted. Gia was crying openly now and pretending she was not. The decorator clapped with a bolt of fabric under one arm. The antique specialist whispered something about romance and marble that I chose not to investigate. Carlos pulled me into him, one arm around my waist, not dragging, not claiming for anyone else, just holding. I lifted my face. You may kiss me now. His eyes darkened. May I? Do not become too well behaved. It will frighten the staff. Then he kissed me in the middle of our half-redecorated salon while sunlight poured through the new curtains, while Gia laughed and cried, while the house that had once locked me inside quietly became the place I had chosen to stay. We married 1 month later in the garden. Not a massive underworld spectacle. Not a council performance. Not a political event buried under flowers and weapons. A small ceremony beneath white lanterns and deep blue ribbons, with Gia standing beside me, Mateo beside Carlos, and enough guards hidden among the hedges to make Carlos relax by 1%. I wore ivory again. This time, not for battle, for joy. Carlos wore black because I had suggested navy and he had looked at me like I had proposed treason. The officiant asked if I came freely. I laughed before I could help it. Every guest turned. Carlos's mouth almost moved. I squeezed his hand. Sorry. Inside thought. The officiant looked uncertain. Carlos said dead serious, she comes freely. Then he looked at me and corrected himself. You come freely? There it was, the tiny repair, the difference between the man who had taken me and the man who had learned how to love me. My heart cracked open in the sweetest way. Yes, I said, I come freely. Carlos's thumb brushed once over my knuckles. The vows were simple. His were shorter than mine, which surprised no one. I will stand beside you, he said. I will protect without owning. I will listen when you say no. I will burn cities only with your approval. The guests laughed. He did not, which made it much funnier. I smiled up at him. I will love you even when you brood near windows. I will correct your furniture. I will fight beside you, argue with you, choose you, and remind you that a woman is not safe just because a man is strong. She is safe when he is worthy of trust. His eyes shone. Not tears. Carlos Ravolenti did not cry in gardens. But something moved there. Something mine. When he kissed me as my husband, the applause rose around us like a tide. That night, after the guests left and the lanterns still glowed in the garden, Carlos carried me over the threshold of the West Wing because Gia insisted tradition mattered and I insisted I was capable of walking. Carlos listened to Gia. Traitor. Our bedroom had changed the most. Blue velvet sofa, cream curtains, warm lamps, fresh flowers. The terrible chair from the secure suite had been removed to somewhere it could reflect on its choices. Carlos claimed he did not know where. He absolutely knew. He set me down beside the bed slowly, and the laughter faded into something quieter. The kind of quiet that did not feel empty. The kind that full of everything we had survived. His hand brushed my cheek. "Are you happy?" he asked. That question, so simple. So unlike the man who once assumed answers because fear had taught him not to ask. I turned my face into his palm. Yes. His eyes closed briefly. As happy as a woman can be while still planning to move your ancestors into storage. He opened his eyes. Our ancestors. Do not try to make me emotionally responsible for those portraits. His mouth curved. A real smile. Small, devastating, rare. Mine. Then his expression changed. The humor stayed but softened under heat, under reverence, under the kind of wanting that no longer frightened me because it had learned patience. He leaned down and kissed me, slowly. Not like the first desperate night when choice had trembled between us. This kiss was deeper, warmer, a husband's kiss. A promise remembered by skin and breath and the careful way his hands waited until mine pulled him closer. The room blurred around us. His mouth moved over mine with restrained hunger, his fingers sliding into my hair, careful of the pins, careful of me, even when I could feel how badly he wanted to stop being careful. That was what undid me most, not the strength, not the danger, the restraint, the devotion. The way the beast of the underworld held me like my yes mattered more than his need. I whispered his name against his mouth. Not as a warning this time, as an invitation. He went still. Monica. I chose you today, I said. In the garden, in front of everyone. His forehead touched mine. I know. I choose you now. The last thread of control in his face softened into something almost painful. He kissed me again, and this time I let the world narrow to him, to the warmth of his hands at my waist, to the silk of my dress sliding from my shoulders beneath his careful fingers, to the way he looked at me as if I were not a prize he had won, not a woman the underworld had worshipped, not a reputation, not a weapon, not a darling, just Monica, his wife, his equal, his love. We moved together slowly, tenderly, with all the words we did not need to say spoken through touch instead. The night wrapped around us, soft and golden, while the last lanterns flickered beyond the curtains I had chosen. There was heat, yes, enough to steal breath and silence every joke for a while. But beneath it was something stronger than hunger. Trust. Carlos loved like he had once ruled, completely. But now every touch asked, every kiss listened, every moment gave back what he had once taken. When the world finally settled, I lay against him with his heartbeat beneath my cheek and his hand moving gently through my hair. He had wrapped me in the blue throw from the end of the bed and placed a glass of water within reach because Carlos Ravolenti could command armies, but still became intensely serious about hydration after making love. You are staring. I murmured, yes. At your wife? Yes. That is very possessive language. His fingers paused. I lifted my head and smiled. Relax, I liked it. He exhaled slowly as if I had released him from a trial. I kissed his chest. You are still learning. I will always be learning you. That sentence was so beautiful I had to punish it immediately. Careful, that was poetry adjacent. His hand resumed its slow path through my hair. I apologize. No, you don't. No, I laughed softly, and he pulled me closer. Outside, Ravolenti House stood changed beneath the moon, still guarded, still powerful, still full of secrets, history, and men who looked far too serious near doorways. But now there were flowers in the foyer, warm light in the windows, curtains that did not look like grief had chosen them personally. Gia's office in the East Wing, a foundation that protected women no one powerful wanted protected. And in the West Wing, a bedroom where the beast of the underworld held the woman everyone had worshipped and loved her without chains. In the morning, I would begin on the portraits. Carlos did not know that yet. Or perhaps he did and had chosen peace for one night. Either way, I closed my eyes smiling, because I had not been taken. Not anymore. I had not been rescued. Not exactly. I had been chosen. And better than that, I had chosen back.